America needs to get its fiscal house in order. We start to do that in this bill. I wish that there was just one Democrat in the House or Senate that would join us in trying to get responsible about addressing these problems, but they're not right now. They're a party in disarray, but we're still unified. We have some issues and questions we're working through, no doubt, but every step of the way, you go back and look at the two-step reconciliation process, the budget, then this reconciliation bill. Every vote's been tight. The margins are tight, but we're getting it done, and we're going to get it done this week in the House.
It seems to me that there's two factions, or maybe even three factions. Some who are saying, for example, Medicaid should not be cut, or at least not cut the way it's being cut. On the other end, there's some who think that the bill needs to be even more responsible insofar as bringing down the deficit. How does that play out?
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, Medicaid still grows under this bill. It just doesn't grow as dramatically. It's been one of the biggest growth areas of the budget. But we do put some constraints in place in terms of work requirements and say, if somebody's able-bodied and they can go get a job and they're living in their mom's basement playing video games, I'm sorry, you got to go get a job. This program was designed for the truly needy, the disabled people, pregnant women, seniors. Those are the people we're going to help more by shoring the program up. And so why would you want a runaway program that's going bust right now, which is what we have? Let's get the program back on track. And we do that. But clearly, there were a lot of discussions along the way. Some of us that would like to go further. But this is where we are in the bill. But the work requirements are going to be significant reforms to get people back in the workforce. And I think ultimately that's a good thing, to take somebody who's fully able to work to get back to work.
Why do the work requirements not kick in until 2029? I know there are fiscal hawks who look at that and they're very upset by it, not just in the House, but also in the Senate. How do you make that work? And why wait till 2029 if you think it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, the good news is Speaker Johnson and myself have already worked with a number of members to move that date up. But one of the things that was involved, and I think the reason the date was so late, and a few of us had an issue with that, is that the Trump administration needs time to implement it. So we worked with Dr. Oz, and Dr. Oz will ultimately be the person over at CMS to implement the work requirements. And we're coming to a much earlier date, early 2027, that we're going to put in the bill in the Rules Committee this week. So you're going to see a much earlier date, giving Dr. Oz the time he needs to implement the changes, but moving that date up dramatically.
Will you lose any moderate Republican votes by moving that date up? Will you still have the numbers to pass it on the floor in the House?
We are talking to all of those members. We've talked to some of them during the weekend. They heard the membership, overall membership, last week. We had a full briefing on this bill, the entirety. All 11 committee chairmen who were involved went through every piece of the bill, and any member could come to this briefing. And we had a lot of members there asking a lot of those questions, including this one. So everybody knew this was something that we were working on. We're going to go through those details again this week before we bring it to the floor.
Leader Scalise, we just had Senator Hagerty on the broadcast in the last hour, and we were talking about what the Senate ultimately might do as it relates to this. He didn't want to negotiate that out in the public, but I'm curious, as you think about it, what kind of major differences you think are already starting to emerge? You know where the fault lines are in terms of what you folks do and what the Senate ultimately does.
I hope that there are no major rewrites of the bill. We've been talking with the Senate every step of the way. So, Senator Thune, Senator Crapo, who's going to be handling the bulk of this bill as chairman of Senate Finance. So they know what we were doing on tax policy, which is the biggest piece of this bill. Then on Medicaid, which is the next biggest piece of this bill, and all the other points in between. Defense, there were a lot of conversations, differences between the House and Senate. We ultimately went with the Senate's version there on defense. But then on the other pieces, we've been letting them know about the dynamics within our conference and the narrow vote margin, just like they've got a narrow vote margin. They've got ultra-fiscal conservatives. They have moderates in the Senate. I think they're going to run into some of the same dilemmas we had, which is how we struck a balance. We struck a very delicate balance in this bill. It's a very big bill, but a bill that's going to get this economy moving again. It delivers on President Trump's priorities, and it really delivers for those hardworking families who want relief from higher costs at the grocery store, higher inflation, higher interest rates. That's what this bill is going to deliver for them.
Leader Scalise, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate it very, very much, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you a lot more as this progresses. You bet.
Thanks.
When we come back, from taxes to tariffs, Business Roundtable CEO Josh Bolten will tell us how corporate America views President Trump's economic agenda. That's coming up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Squawk Box will be right back.
Only the ServiceNow platform connects every corner of your business, putting AI agents to work for people.
Like secret agents?
No, more like autonomous minions that you control.
To do what?
Well, Jim's agents resolve simple customer issues, and Patty's agents flag network problems.
Proactively.
Yep.
I'm loving my agents. Wait, do you all have agents?
Oh, yeah. And on the ServiceNow platform, everyone's agents work together, so everything works better.
Could I have agents?
Maybe.
At Interactive Brokers, independent RIAs work with the best research and trading tools designed to help them outperform the markets. Meet them at Interactive Brokers Investors Marketplace for advisors. Advisors at Interactive Brokers keep all they earn on our low-cost platform, with no ticket fees or custody charges, low margin rates, and high interest earned on idle cash. To get better results, get a better platform. The best informed investors choose Interactive Brokers.
Consumer Cellular, ranked #1 in network coverage and customer satisfaction.
Hi, my friend Linda has you guys and gets way better coverage than I do.
Sounds like Linda has you beat.
Only in coverage.
And plans start at $20.
Okay, price too.
Call or visit Consumer Cellular to switch today.
At Public Rec, we develop premium performance fabrics that are built to last.
Order
canceled.
canceled.
Without. Our Daymaker pants, with their various sizing options, are designed to fit your life's moments. More comfortable than jeans, more stylish than sweats.
That's what makes this game more unique.
Hey, you all play pickleball?
Tonight.
7. See you later.
To get what you need, same day, the world needs warehouses. Blackstone made the connection early and became the largest private investor in logistics globally. It's investments like these that can help build wealth for your clients.
Burger King, when we say we're cooking with fire, we mean it. It's what gives our burgers that unmistakable, one-of-a-kind, flame-grilled taste that ignites all of your senses. It's the only way we know how to do it. Because if your burger's not flame-grilled, you're not really having it your way. Taste the difference with 2 Whopper Juniors for just $5. After all,
She's definitely taking advantage of the Grubhub deal from Amazon.
That's why I keep running into you.
Amazon Prime member? You can get $0 delivery fees on Grubhub. Eligible orders only. Terms and additional fees.
Welcome back to Squawk. DNA genetics company 23andMe announcing it has now reached an agreement to have Regeneron acquire that company for $256 million. Now, 23andMe filed for bankruptcy protection earlier this year. As part of the court-supervised process, Regeneron will have to abide by all of 23andMe's privacy policies.
That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah, having said that, you know, the privacy policies, I mean, we need to sort of delve into that at some point. I imagine that data is what Regeneron is effectively buying. Now, it may be that they can't share that data beyond Regeneron, but I don't know when people first got involved with 23andMe whether they were anticipating that it was going to go to a company that makes and manufactures drugs and things like that.
I was not.
And how that was going to
gave them my,
right.
you know.
So they have my DNA too.
They have mine, yeah.
And it's interesting, $256 million, not a lot of money. You can go back and look at what the valuations of that company had been at one point.
I will say there's a way to take yourself out, your information out, but when I tried to do it, the system was overloaded with too many people trying to do that. I don't know if it's too late to still be able to do that, but there were several days where you couldn't get through, or you had great difficulty trying to get through to be able to shut off those purchases of it. My guess is that it is something that will draw the attention of Congress at some point if things go down that line that you were just talking about. Kind of creepy new world, right?
Very much so, very much so. But you know what? We should talk to the guys at Regeneron, find out what they're planning to do with the business.
That's a good idea. they want to come on, we'd love to have you. When we come back, we're going to talk about a wide-ranging interview that we have with Walter Isaacson. We'll be talking about politics, business, science, and much more. That's all coming when Squawk Box returns.
When you're the leader in disaster cleanup and restoration, how do you make like it never even happened happen? Let it rain, Randy! Woo! Yes! By being prepared for anything! Woo! Whatever comes your way, there's a pro for that.
Serve Pro, like it never even happened.
New projects means new project managers. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
Most people don't realize how processed typical dog food is. At the Farmer's Dog, we believe dogs should be able to get their daily nutrition without the excess processing.
You founded your kayak company because you love the ocean, not spreadsheets. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, candidates can find it easier, so you can hire easier. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
To avoid digital threats, just turn on NordVPN. Improve your protection against trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. Get the deal now.
Your record label is taking off, but so is your sound engineer. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our advanced matching helps find talented candidates, so you can connect with them fast. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
University of Maryland Global Campus believes in students and what they can offer the world. You get credit for experience. I didn't have to start at the bottom. I had life experience and I had actual job experience that translated to coursework and helped cut down the cost of school. UMGC honored the level of effort that I put into myself and helped me become a highly attractive candidate in the job market. Being able to buy a home is part of the American dream, and I couldn't be prouder.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We want to get to the intersection of business, science, and politics. Just in the last week, we've learned about some huge breakthroughs in gene editing and biotech to cure diseases. But at the same time, some of those very labs making these discoveries are having their federal funding cut. Joining us right now to talk about it all is Walter Isaacson, Perella Weinberg Advisory Partner, Tulane University history professor, and author of many, many best-selling biographies, including Elon Musk, and maybe more specifically to this topic, Codebreaker, your 2021 book that took a look at where we are on this brave new world in terms of what we are coming up with.
It's the biggest revolution happening other than AI. And the Codebreaker was about using new gene editing tools called CRISPR that Jennifer Doudna and others created. And now this past week, we've seen Sam Sternberg at Columbia, who was a graduate student of Jennifer, use jumping genes to be able to put new genes when somebody has a genetic illness. Likewise, David Liu won the Breakthrough Prize, and it was very moving to be there to watch the 17-year-old he had cured and just last week announced another cure for an infant by using this.
9.5-month-old baby.
But what makes it really sad is the devastation of these labs happening right now. At Harvard, which is where David Liu is, Columbia, they're just having to fire everybody. I mean, I should say everybody, but decimated, really firing more than half the people, bringing on no new So we're going to quit this research that kept America in the vanguard.
I mean, I think this is so important. When you were talking about CRISPR in 2021, I thought it was still at least a decade away, if not 2 decades away. What we have seen over the last 4 years has been astounding. People are being saved from diseases that would have killed them.
Especially these rare genetic diseases, but you'll soon see it with cancer. We're already seeing some of that, which is immunotherapy requires using it. And we have three major attacks on this. One is just the cutback on research and development. For 80 years, our nation has led, since Vannevar Bush and Harry Truman and Roosevelt at the end of World War II, created government-funded basic research, which led to CRISPR, which led to the internet, which led to search engines, which led to America being the strongest, most innovative nation. That's being cut. Secondly, they're targeted attacks because of anti-Semitism, which I get, it's important to fight that. But when they attack a university for anti-Semitism, say Harvard or then Columbia, it's actually the graduate students in the labs doing science research that get hurt, because that's the government grants that get cut.
Can I ask you, someone who knows Elon Musk probably better than just about anybody else, and whether you think about this in the context of Doge, or whether you think about it just in the context of the administration or USAID, or all of the things, which in very many ways are all interrelated.
Right.
He thinks what about what you're discussing right now?
Well, I don't channel his thoughts at the moment, but I know that he understands that research and development is what got us into space, got the type of things he's done, allowed GPS to be widespread. So it affects every business, whether it's Tesla, Starlink, and all. I do think that he and anybody who has been in a technology business understands that the seed corn for innovation is research in basic science. And when you cut that for either political reasons, because you're targeting a university, or you just want to cut back somehow National Institute of Health funding, or or you have a fear of the letters RNA, which is what some people have.
Look, the biggest issue is everything is facing cuts. The only ones that aren't going to get cuts are the ones that have the biggest, loudest lobbyists. And I'm not sure that the research and development have the biggest, loudest lobbyists.
I think, too, that people are mistaking the fact that, oh, we don't like elite universities. And I get it. Maybe there were some problems and everything from anti-Semitism. And so you want to attack it. But why is it that the blows to those universities, the grants you're cutting, aren't, you know, for admissions offices?
Right.
It's for research and development in basic science, especially life sciences, that's saving lives now.
And we are letting go of doctoral students and the graduate students
It's a
who are doing
brain
this work. I think you make the point that the big issue is we could lose a lot of them to China or to European universities.
Oh, absolutely. We now have seen in these clinical trials and these things you talked about that happened in the past few weeks, in which people are being cured of genetic diseases, there are now more clinical trials in China than there are in the United States. For 80 years, we've led the world. When you start seeing more basic research and clinical trials being done in China, you know, that's not going to be good for the next decade.
It's not just the funding issues. It's also whether you have the regulatory structure to allow those things to happen. The FDA has kind of been gutted over the last 2 months.
Right, right. And it's a complicated thing. You were talking about Regeneron having all of our DNA now because of 23andMe. In China, you have no privacy protections that way we hope we could have here. So there are a lot of complex regulatory issues, but the main one right now isn't is there too much or too little regulation on health research. It's why have you decided to just get rid of all this basic science funding?
Love this. I would love to have you back to talk more about it. Very quickly while you're here, though, why don't we talk about the business world's relationship with the White House at this point? Where are we? It's complicated with tariffs. We just saw this huge tour in the Middle East with a lot of investment that came in as a result.
I think you've got a transactional president. You know, we always look at presidents. Are they realists or are they idealists on foreign policy? It's interesting to see one that's pretty transparent, meaning that, you know, President Trump is very transactional and brought, you know, the head of NVIDIA, Elon Musk, of course, was there, all to the Middle East. And I think this is a major rebalancing in this world. We used to have a world of China, maybe Europe, the United States, the U.S. alliance with NATO and Western Europe. And now you see a transactional, in many ways, great investment things being done in AI, in which the Persian Gulf states are the ones that'll be part of a new economic alliance with the U.S.
I have an AI-related question for you while we have you here, which is, it's again an Elon Musk question. It's a Grok question. You've seen some of the stuff about white supremacy in South Africa that's shown up. last week on Grok. How do you think that happens? Do you think that happens by accident? Do you think it happens because it's directed by some? What do you think is going on when we're seeing stuff like that appear?
I think all AI is as good as the training, the data upon which it trains. And one of the things that Musk got almost serendipitously when he bought what was then Twitter was he got the billion tweets a day as training ground for the new AI company he was starting. And so I think that's one of the reasons. Are there people there trying to please the boss and put a finger on the scale when it happens? I don't know, but I will say that Grok AI is actually now better in terms of timely things.
Oh, I think for timely things, if you just want to know about the news, most of the time it's much better.
I think that it's really good to have many competing AI companies, which is why I hope OpenAI stays a bit open with its source, because if you have one that goes off the rails and decides to be politically this way or that, we don't want to have just 2 or 3 AI companies. It's useful to have 6 or 7.
Walter, there's 15 other topics I would love to discuss with you. Come back when you're in town again.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Walter
Good to see
Isaacson.
you all.
It's great to see you. All right, folks, it is 8 a.m. on the East Coast, and you're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick, along with Andrew Ross Sorkin. Joe is out today. Among our top stories this morning, we are watching the equities markets. The futures are sharply lower this morning, although we're off the worst levels of the day. The Dow futures were down by about 335 points earlier. Now they're off by just over 200. NASDAQ futures down by a bit more on a percentage and a point basis at this point, down by about 290 points. S&P futures are down by 58. The market's reacting to Moody's downgrade of the nation's credit rating, the rating agency citing concerns about the deficit. In Washington, the House Budget Committee voting to advance President Trump's multi-trillion-dollar domestic policy package. Next up for the bill is the House Rules Committee, which is expected to meet Wednesday morning to take up that bill. And overnight in Taiwan, Phidias CEO Jensen Huang announcing a new partnership between his company, Foxconn, and Taiwan Semi to build what's being called an AI factory supercomputer. Huang also announcing plans for a new headquarters there. And Phidias stock this morning off by about 2.6%. Of course, all of the big tech stocks are down this morning in large part because Treasury yields are higher after that Moody's downgrade.
I want to get over to Mike Santoli, who's at the New York Stock Exchange this morning. Mike.
Andrew, yes. So obviously that Moody's downgrade coming after the close on Friday, and it met a market that had really earned back a lot of the benefit of the doubt. Take a look at the S&P 500, and probably after this 23% rally off the lows was in search of probably an excuse to pull back a little bit. I was saying that late last week. You basically cleared a lot of technical hurdles. At the same time, you were getting a little bit stretched. And so it does seem as if this is the occasion for a little bit of a rollover. This is the S&P 500 index fund, the SPYs. I would say you talk about going down to about 4% down from here is the 200-day average. That would be a very routine pullback. It's basically the level from which we sort of blasted off after the de-escalation with China the week before, 5,700 or 570 on the SPYs. Just think about that as being a perfectly normal retracement, so not necessarily something that says the whole macro has changed. One feature of the recent comeback rally has been the Mag 7 reasserting itself. So obviously the big NASDAQ 100 names, they are still trailing the broad market on a year-to-date basis, but this is the Mag 7 against the equal-weighted S&P 500 on a one-year basis. You see a couple of times it's threatened to sort of give back all of its outperformance, and then it's blasted off. But what it means is there's a whole lot of air under there in terms of recent outperformance for that to come out. And in fact, it's these types of stocks that are leading the pullback this morning. Finally, wanted to take a look. Look, the question is, does the Moody's sovereign debt rating on the U.S. government have much of a tangible impact? It doesn't really. Nobody can't own treasuries really because they're no longer rated AAA. This is the spread between U.S. 10-year treasury and the 10-year German government bond. So if there was something unique about people being concerned about the American creditworthiness or the long-term stability of its debt, you'd see this gap probably blow out a little bit. Now, yields everywhere are going up. German yields are also going up because they're deciding to take on more debt, but nobody thinks that Germany is really suspect in terms of its longer-term fiscal situation. So I would say, yes, nominal yields, 10 years, 30 years on treasuries are kind of above last week's highs, and definitely are creating a challenge for the equity market and perhaps the economy. But it's not as if there's some broad assessment that says all of a sudden the U.S. fiscal situation has dramatically soured.
Mike, it's an interesting one. We're going to continue to watch. Thank you very, very much.
All right, another big change at Berkshire Hathaway. The company's annual meeting will take place in Omaha once again next year, but Warren Buffett will not take the stage at next year's meeting. Instead, the CEO in waiting, Greg Abel, will field questions while Buffett sits down on the arena floor with the other Berkshire directors. Buffett shocked investors earlier this month when he told guests at Berkshire's shareholder meeting that he would ask the company's board to have Abel succeed him at the end of this year. Next year's entire meeting, once again, will be streamed exclusively by CNBC. We'll be there asking questions, once again, from the stage. And, we'll get more details as we get closer. But obviously, it's been a huge shareholder gathering, 40,000 plus people who've come the last many years.
Woodstock of capitalism.
Right. It's time that they take hours worth of questions for these things. Buffett will be there.
Right.
I'm going to try and get him to talk to us.
Right.
But
it could be a huge impact. I mean, the big question is the huge impact on Omaha.
Yes.
As a city. This is, I believe, their second biggest weekend of any year. Of the year.
Second biggest event after the College World Series, which takes place over several weeks.
And then there's the issue, and I think it's still minuscule on a relative basis to the size of Berkshire, but for some of the businesses, the Nebraska Furniture Marts of the world, the Borsheims, there's a sizable business that actually takes place during that weekend for them, and so that's going to be complicated if you believe that people don't show up at the same level. Yeah. Having said that, I think there's I mean, I've been going for, I don't know, 15, whatever, some odd years. There's a reunion-like aspect to it. Yeah. And so there may be people who come irrespective of whether Warren takes questions or not.
Right. It's something to watch, and I think part of the reason that they wanted to get this word out now is because they're thinking about the Omaha businesses, wondering if the meeting was going to go on.
Right.
So it is going to go on, just in a slightly different format than it's been in the past. All right, when we come back, investors taking notice of a downgrade to U.S. credit from Moody's, sending the 30-year Treasury yield above 5%. We're going to talk yields and what's causing that move right after the break. And later, how CEOs and the business community are feeling about the president's economic agenda. Business Roundtable President Josh Bolton will join us. Squawk Box will be right back.
America's Youth Mental Health Challenge requires bipartisan solutions.
And that's why we're partnering with a coalition to empower our future.
There are many complex factors that should all be considered.
Economic hardships, social isolation, overuse of devices, fear of violence, and bullying all play a role.
A complicated challenge needs a comprehensive solution.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Let's convene a conversation about empowering parents to keep their kids safe.
Does your wife know you spent over $600 on takeout?
We're busy. We don't have time to cook.
Okay, but do you know you're also paying for a meal kit on top of that?
Wait, really?
Look, just get Rocket Money. It shows you all your expenses in one place, and it even tracks your subscriptions. And any subscription you don't want, which for you, there's a lot you don't need, you can cancel right from the app.
So you mean I don't have to call customer service to cancel?
Nope, no hold times or anything. And they'll even try to get you a refund for the money you spent, which I'm sure your wife will be very grateful for.
I'm gonna download it right now.
Here on the internet, you can pretend to be anything.
Like a medical professional.
Or a skilled electrician.
Don't trust the unfiltered internet. Angie has 30 years of experience finding the best pros.
Angie, job's done well.
My hair was thinning all around my hairline.
My dermatologist recommended Nutrafol. It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
My hair is longer, thicker.
Nutrafol is life-changing for me.
Get growing at Nutrafol.com.
Don't miss a members-only event.
You want to trade? We may not be for you. You want to invest? Come to the right place.
Join the CNBC Investing Club to access Jim's monthly meeting. Go to cnbc.com/monthly meeting.
At Ace, we know whether you grill with charcoal, gas, pellet, or griddle, we've got the perfect grill for you. Because only your local Ace has all the best brands in one place, like Weber, Big Green Egg, Traeger, and Blackstone. With free assembly and delivery of your new grill, along with all the sauces, rubs, and grilling extras, you'll have everything you need for your perfect barbecue. That sounds pretty perfect. Around the block, what you need in stock, with service so good it's guaranteed.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Like a dog.
Quitting nicotine with support makes all the difference. Outsmart nicotine every step of the way with X-Pro.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. A quick market call to tell you about this morning. UBS is upgrading Delta Airlines and United Airlines to a buy from a neutral. UBS says that the recent tariff relief has shifted the firm's base case scenario of a downturn in the economy to stability, but slow growth and increased confidence in the resilience of international and premium revenue. UBS also raising its price target for each. The new price target for Delta is $66. That stock right now at $50. And for United, they're looking for $105. That stock right now at $77.50. Credit ratings agency Moody's downgrading U.S. debt to AA1 from AAA over the weekend. The agency citing the budget deficit and rising interest payments on government debt in a high interest rate environment for that cut. The move brings Moody's in line with major rival credit ratings agencies, which already gave the United States their second highest rating. Standard & Poor's downgraded the United States back in 2011. Fitch cut the U.S. rating to back in August of 2023. So for how this move could play out in the bond market, we want to bring in Tom Tezoris. He's the head of fixed income research at Strategas Research Partners, which of course is a Baird company. And Tom, let's talk this through. This is the third major rating agencies. They're saying this is over a decade of problematic budget deficiencies and deficits and more for as far as the eye can see. How important is this downgrade this morning? We are seeing Treasury yields higher.
Well, I think it's important in the context of this is a global phenomenon. We've seen for not just the last decade, multiple decades, global sovereigns, particularly G10 sovereigns, continuing to try to run their economies at full employment at all costs using fiscal stimulus with large budget deficits. The U.S. is pretty much the last in line here to really catch the eye of the rating agencies. So this was inevitable. This was a decade or more coming. I think what's suspicious is the timing of this right around the beginning of budget discussions for the next fiscal year and just after we had a bond market tantrum. I'll leave that up to viewers to decide whether there was any motivation with that, but this was a long time coming.
I don't know if I'd call it suspicious as much as, okay, this is happening because if you're not going to address it in this next budget go-around, what better time?
Well, I think the better times were last year when we were running $2 trillion deficit, 7.5% of GDP, and the year before that. Either way.
They didn't say it based on these last 100 days. They said this is based on over a decade.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But again, the timing of it in May looks suspicious. But whether it's politically motivated or not, markets have to deal with reality. It's here. And what are the consequences? And we argue the consequences are going to be marginally less demand for U.S. dollar assets, particularly longer duration assets. And that means all else equal, a steeper U.S. Treasury curve. And again, this is global phenomenon. It's not just the U.S. who's experiencing this, but now the U.S. is also experiencing it.
So what does this mean for the globe? This is pushback on central banks not reining things in.
Yep. Well, what it means is that we long ago, I will say long ago, a decade or more ago, actually entered a period of long-term secular reflation. The only way out, particularly when the global safe haven's reserve currency is now in excessive deficits and debt load, the only way out is to reflate this. You cannot have ever a reserve currency default. So that means the U.S. is now going to eventually join the caravan of devaluers of their currency. And if everybody else is devaluing, it means globally steeper yield curves, and it means higher structural inflation for years and years to come. It probably does not mean waning demand for treasuries relative to other sovereigns, but it does mean waning demand for treasuries versus commodities in particular.
So if we are talking about this global inflationary trade, That sounds like a time that the Fed should not be cutting rates.
Well, yes and no. You have to be cautious here. You can't cut rates as much as you would in the past. So let's say the U.S. entered a shallow recession middle portion of this year, which is probably close to a 50-50 bet. Even if you ignore the last few cycles, which were unusual, the typical playbook may be to cut rates 250 to 300 basis points. Well, we've already cut rates 100 basis points.
Right.
So that might tell us the runway is only another 50 to 100 basis points of rate cuts. So additional rate cuts should come, but we're probably not going to be depositing the Fed funds rate below 3%.
Should they come if inflation is still running north of 2.5%?
Well, if goods inflation is running high, but service sector inflation continues to drift lower, then that is a near-term or even intermediate-term sign that we're still winning the battle on inflation. Goods inflation will, over long terms, will essentially still be zero, even with a global reflation. It's service sector inflation we have to worry about. That's where the structural bottleneck is, in my opinion.
There are questions about what the appetite for U.S. Treasuries will be, whether the buyers will show up in full force. You're saying it's still a great safe bet, safer than just about any place else. So the higher the yields go, the more you like them?
Oh, absolutely. So we agree there's going to be marginally less bidders at auctions, and we also believe that coupon auctions are going to have to rise no later than first quarter of next year. So we'll really very likely see the pain next year as coupon auctions are rising, and presumably the U.S. economy is back towards trend growth, 2 to 2.5%, and now you start to see more cyclical service sector inflation. That would be the point where we probably see the next round of pain. As of right now, though, we still got to get through the middle portion of this year, which is looking at a consumer slowdown, business slowdown, and service sector inflation actually going lower. So that should be supportive of Treasury yields. Also, we have upwards of $600 billion of Treasury cash that's likely to come into the market because we have not yet raised the debt ceiling. So every day that we delay, more Treasury cash comes into bank reserves, which actually helps to flatten the Treasury curve.
All of this is happening as we have the tariffs in the background. We're in a 90-day pause right now. What happens if that 90-day pause turns into tariffs back on again?
Well, I think it's, again, another environment where you're seeing everything off except for gold. And maybe gold's the only thing that's not off, but even Bitcoin, stocks, bonds are off, the dollar's off. So it's a return to the playbook of sell everything and let's see where the chips fall out. I would expect, though, that even if we get tariffs coming back on, they very well may come back off again 5 days later. I think this is
Which means high volatility.
Exactly, volatility, so you're long vol.
Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Phidias CEO Jensen Huang headlining one of the largest tech conferences of the year and making a very big announcement. We're going to talk tech stocks after the break, and we'll tell you what he said when we return.
In any business, you ride the line between numbers and people. What's right for the business and what's best for everyone who depends on it. Solving today's challenges while creating future opportunities. It takes balance. CLA, CPAs, consultants, and wealth advisors will get you there.
What if you could invest in a future where skin cancer treatment is non-invasive and relatively painless? Medicus Pharma's groundbreaking solution delivers chemotherapy directly to the tumor site, offering a mostly painless alternative to invasive surgeries. With the skin cancer treatment market expected to exceed $20 billion by 2030, Medicus is poised to meet the demand for cost-effective, non-surgical options, now advancing Phase 2 studies. Medicus Pharma, leading the charge in skin cancer innovation.
Okay, guys, instead of getting WeatherTech, I saved a few bucks and got some cheap foreign-made floor mats. But they really stink, so put these on.
Really, Barry? Mom, I'm thirsty.
Don't settle for cheap, stinky floor mats. At WeatherTech, we make our floor liners and cargo liners here in America out of pure, non-toxic American materials.
Dad, next time get WeatherTech. They don't stink.
I'm on it.
Find out everything we have at WT.com.
rich life isn't a straight line to a destination on the horizon. Sometimes it takes an unexpected turn with detours, new possibilities, and even another passenger or three. And with 100 years of navigating ups and downs, you can count on us to help guide you through it all. Because life is a winding path, made rich by the people you walk it with.
Kelly Evans, Brian Sullivan, Power Lunch, weekdays 2 Eastern, CNBC. Never miss a moment.
Having a 10% global tariff, that's going to help reduce the trade deficit, but also reshore and create fairer trading conditions with our partners overseas.
Companies recalibrate but will not reshore. 10% is not enough for companies to reshore.
Retailers, they're going to look across all categories of products and look at the elasticity of the demand for those products and maybe change prices on other products that might not have a tariff applied to them.
Today, I'm very happy to announce that we're also building AI for Taiwan. And so today we're announcing that Foxconn, Taiwan, the Taiwanese government, NVIDIA, TSMC, we're going to build the first giant AI supercomputer here for the AI infrastructure and the AI ecosystem of Taiwan.
That was NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang headlining this year's Computex conference in Taiwan, and overnight announcing a new partnership to build an AI supercomputer, new plans for a Taiwan headquarters as well. AI stocks rallying last week after President Trump's visit to the Middle East that brought some new deals and partnerships to the sector. Joining us right now is one of our tech voices who's been buying NVIDIA on that dip. Ray Wang is the Constellation Research founder and chairman. Good morning to you. Help us. You've been buying on the dip. What do you think it's worth today? I mean, right now we should say stocks across the board, but there's a little bit of I don't know if you want to call it a sell America situation, but this morning we've got a lot of things off, maybe 2% or so.
Well, in general, I mean, we've seen the recovery year to date and year over year with the Mag 7. And there's been a lot of, since the tariff situation, as we always say, we're a couple of tariff trade deals away from actually a recovery. The recovery is starting to happen. And so it's coming up on the up curve. And so when you take something like NVIDIA and their announcement on, a Taiwan supercomputer, you see the announcement as well in terms of what they're trying to do to get around export bans and making sure they build an export compliant chip. All those things are happening at once. And it's not just NVIDIA, it's just tech stocks in general. There's a recovery that has happened, and I think as the more trade deals that do come through, the more likely we're going to see that recovery.
And when you look at like an Alphabet though, or somebody else that maybe is or a Microsoft, how do you think they react compared to like the chip makers, for example? How do you differentiate?
You're right. It's very different. Software is very different than chips. China-based companies like Tesla, Apple have a different kind of profile. And in terms of exposure, software companies typically don't have as much of the reliance on any kind of export control. So Microsoft, for example, and Alphabet and Amazon, Meta are less likely to feel that pinch. They also have different business models. Meta is heavy on advertising, Alphabet heavy on advertising. Even Amazon is now probably heavy on advertising that you probably wouldn't imagine. And so those things play a different role in terms of that recovery. But in general, I mean, it's tech that's been driving double-digit gains, and it's tech that's still possible to get that infinite scale that most other companies aren't able to do.
So who would you buy and who wouldn't you buy that sort of lands in AI land?
Well, Alphabet and Amazon are still about negative 12%, negative 6% year to date. And that shows there's potential for recovery. What's interesting about Alphabet is they're able to go from chip all the way to AI, and they've got the wide range. And if you look at the competition between language models, Gemini is doing really, really well. And every version of Gemini continues to show that Alphabet actually has a really superior position on AI. Amazon, on the other hand, is playing a different game. Amazon has pretty much, it's firing on all cylinders. It's able to deliver on ads and goods and services and memberships and subscriptions. And they're also able to deliver AI, but it's AI for Amazon as opposed to AI for AI's sake in general. And so those two are underperforming for the year to date, but definitely have a lot of upside.
And where are you putting Apple in that? You're putting them together?
Apple's different. Apple is, if you look at it, they're down 13% year to date. And Apple is trying to deliver on an AI strategy, and people are still waiting for Apple Intelligence. They're waiting to see what happens with the tariffs and how that impacts Apple. They're looking to see where the production is. But Apple's still very solid, but we're all waiting to see what that next big thing is going to be from Apple.
But when you say you're waiting, does that mean that you would buy it at this price, or you would wait for some kind of other catalyst? And then you'd be late.
I would wait for some other catalyst.
Or no? But you wait.
I would wait for some other catalyst, which is really the tariff situation, to change.
Okay. Ray, we want to thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate it very, very much.
Hey, thanks a lot.
You bet.
Up next, Business Roundtable CEO Josh Bolten on taxes, tariffs, and how the nation's top CEOs are feeling about the U.S. economy. Right now, as we head to a break, let's take a look at the pre-market winners and losers in the S&P 500. We'll be right back.
Oh, so you corporate types are rock stars?
Well, that's as ridiculous as rock stars being corporate types.
Workday's AI agents are making you all rock stars.
Sorry, habit. Proceed.
So that's a slide. Any questions?
And now with Workday, we can manage our people and AI agents. I'm sorry. Who are they?
Oh, interns.
We're interns.
Good night!
I'll see you tomorrow.
Assured Guaranty's bond insurance was protecting investors in municipal green bonds before they were even called green bonds. Assured Guaranty, a stronger bond.
When I started Walton Goggins Goggle Glasses, I needed a website. And GoDaddy Aero uses AI to make a beautiful website so fast it'll blow my customers' noggins while they're shopping for Goggins for their noggins.
This thing is so good for your gut health.
I used to have a collagen, I used to have probiotic, a green juice. I replaced it all with this Arma colostrum.
My hair has gotten so much thicker ever since taking it.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, you can unplug for the day or plunge into a long weekend. Savor the moment or savor the details. Earn points for free nights with IHG One Rewards.
I think the thing that I do best is taking complicated ideas and making them understandable. It's my favorite thing to do. My ambition is to remain at the cutting edge. I adhere to work hard, play hard. I think if you're going to do something, you might as well do it well.
Dear Texas, at HEB, we partner with farmers around the world to bring you Cafe au Lait, made from 100% Arabica beans. And from the world's finest coffee beans, we create blends in over 40 different flavors that Texans love. From whole and ground beans to single-serve cups, iced coffee, and cold brew. No matter how you drink your coffee, every time you take a sip, you'll know it was grown just for you. Cafe au Lait, sourced around the world, brought to Texas with love from HEB.
Just 49 keys inside a metal thing from 1958. Or it's the first step to becoming a writer, and your book gets turned into a movie by your favorite director, aka new best friend. Or becoming a chef who makes croissant nigiri. Or starting a travel scene that takes you from South America to Scandinavia to, hi. Oh, visa. Whatever you want to be, one step can take you everywhere you want to be.
Bath & Body Works getting a bit of a makeover. Courtney Reagan is on the Squawk Newsline with some details this morning. What's going on?
Hi, Andrew. Yeah, we are learning here that Bath & Body Works is getting ready to announce a new CEO. This is the second CEO that they have announced since December of 2022. And it's interesting who's coming in. It's Daniel Heath. He is the executive, you might remember, who was recently let go at Nike, basically as the Chief Transformation and Strategy Officer, as Elliott Hill sort of redesigned the way that Nike works from the inside out there. So he was available, and Bath & Body Works have snapped him up. This is effective immediately. I'm told from a source familiar that he, in fact, got off a plane just yesterday in Columbus, Ohio, where Bath & Body Works is located, and met with some of the top executives last night. Will be introduced to the company here this morning. As this is effective immediately, Gina Boswell, who is the current CEO, will obviously be exiting the company both as CEO and as her position on the board. And it is notable that she did return the company to profitable sales growth. They've actually been on some fairly steady footing and are also pre-announcing some results here this morning showing sales are up 3% for the quarter and earnings per share are coming in at 49 cents, which is both ahead of the company's expectations themselves that they laid out. So somewhat interesting timing. It's not as if the CEO has had any major missteps, but a source familiar tells me that the company has a strong foundation, but they're really looking forward to the future for further acceleration. They're hoping that that Daniel can come in here and help lead them more internationally for growth, also to sort of re-resonate and find new relevance with teens and men who surprisingly are a fairly loyal customer to Bath & Body Works. So that is the news this morning.
Okay, Courtney Reagan on the Newsline. Interesting stuff. We'll keep our eyes on everything as it plays out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a busy few months for CEOs as they navigate the new Trump administration's policies. Joining us right now to talk about everything from taxes to tariffs and share what CEOs are thinking is Josh Bolton. He's the CEO of the Business Roundtable, which represents over 200 CEOs from America's leading companies in every sector of the U.S. economy. Josh, good morning. What are CEOs thinking about the economy right now?
Good morning, Becky. Well, the CEOs are always optimistic. They're always looking ahead to what's good in their business, but they've got to be concerned about the business environment that they're operating in. Two big things are going on here in Washington that are affecting the level of their optimism. One is the reconciliation bill, the tax bill that's working its way through Congress. That's huge for our membership and critical that that get done. So far, the news seems pretty good about how that bill is coming out. The other policy element that's important to all of their businesses here in Washington is what's going on with trade and tariffs, and that has many of our members concerned.
All right, well, let's start with the tax legislation since we've got the biggest news coming out of that this morning overnight with it passing through a House committee. First of all, as somebody who's been in Washington for a long time, as somebody who has steered some of this from the White House, what is your timeline and your expectation in terms of this bill getting passed?
The important thing is that it get done this year. Now, the Speaker has set himself a very ambitious timeline, and he's proved himself and his team to be pretty able at navigating a difficult political situation with a razor-thin margin of majority in the House. And he set a timeline of trying to get the bill out of the House by Memorial Day. That would be great if that happens. It doesn't need to happen. The important thing is that this bill get enacted before the U.S. Starts to bump up against the debt ceiling, because it's important to remember that an increase in the U.S. debt ceiling is also included in this legislation. Treasury is saying that August or September may be the deadline. So from the business standpoint, I think everybody's going to be pretty confident and optimistic about the outcome as long as they get the bill done before Congress goes home for the August recess.
As you've mentioned, this is very important to your membership, just getting those tax cuts extended at the 21% rate. I guess business depreciation, research and development would be other important issues for you in this?
Yes. The important elements of this are a continuation of the overall corporate rate and R&D. The R&D tax credit, which expired a couple of years ago, depreciation elements, and there are important international tax elements. I mean, Becky, everybody should appreciate that if the Congress doesn't get this bill done, there's a massive $4+ trillion tax increase that's going to hit both individuals and business. It's critical that it gets done. Right now, it looks like they're on a pretty good path to get it done.
I know that's something that has business leaders thrilled to have the tax cuts coming through. When you put that in conjunction with the potential for tariffs and what's happening with trade right now, how do CEOs measure or weigh the two sides? They come out on top, or are they under additional pressure that they didn't see coming?
Well, they want to come out on top on both sides. And it's important that the tax, that we keep a competitive corporate and small business tax rate going to keep the economy humming. It's also important that, that the trade situation not go off the rails. There was a pretty sharp reaction when the president announced a whole bunch of tariffs at the beginning of April, and then pretty substantial relief, as you saw in the markets, when it was clear that the president was going to try to negotiate to get some good deals overseas that would make it possible for him not to impose the draconian tariffs that he originally put on the table, and that's what our members are hoping for. They completely support the idea of putting pressure on our trading partners to level the playing field, to treat us as well in their markets as we treat them in ours, and so they don't mind that kind of pressure being put on our trading partners. The important thing is we use that pressure to get the trade barriers down, because going both ways, because our economy is so globally intertwined at this point that raising a lot of barriers on either side, on imports or on our exports, will really damage the bottom line of a lot of our businesses.
Josh, what do you think about the political pressure that might come from the White House, not might, that is coming from the White House on American businesses to hold the line on prices, to effectively eat the tariff costs? And I'm referring specifically to the comments that the president made over the weekend about Doug McMillon at Walmart, and then separately, even a week or two ago, when there was a possibility floated, I think incorrectly, that Amazon was considering, for example, at least being transparent about if prices went up, why they were doing so for a specific part of their business.
Well, Andrew, Walmart and Amazon aren't alone. That the concern about having to raise prices is shared across certainly almost all of the big retailers in America, and a lot of other producers here in the United States as well. The challenge is that, like Walmart, most retailers operate on very thin margins, maybe 3–4% is their margin when they put the product on the shelf. Some of the tariffs that have been threatened or imposed would be 10 times that much, and so every company does everything it can to keep its costs down and not pass them on to the consumers, because the consumers aren't going to come in to shop if the prices go way up. But a tenfold increase in their costs above their margins, that's not something that any typical company can eat. So the imperative from their standpoint is reach a deal that makes those tariffs go away and levels the playing field for Americans.
But Josh, as somebody who's spent a lot of time in the White House yourself before, historically, Republicans did not make comments or specifically try to target businesses. By the way, Democrats often did, and were criticized by Republicans for doing so. This morning, the Wall Street Journal effectively criticizing this Trump administration, saying he's doing what Kamala Harris would have done or has done in the past. And I'm curious, given the seat that you sit in, what you think of those comments.
Well, there's nothing historically similar about this Republican president to previous Republican presidents, and I think he'd probably be proud of that. So none of our members are surprised at the kind of rhetoric that might be coming out of the White House. What matters is what do they do? And the important thing for them to do is not try to force companies into, with jawboning of some kind into making uneconomic decisions. The important thing to do is wrap up the negotiations, get those tariff rates back down, and very importantly, Andrew, reduce the uncertainty that all of our members are facing right now about where they ought to be putting their investment, because as bad as as high tariffs might be, equally damaging right now in the economy is the uncertainty about where the costs are going to be highest, and it's freezing investment. So our encouragement to the administration, which they've heard and they understand, certainly Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Greer do, is go do the negotiations and get the barriers down and get the tariffs down, and the economy will hum.
Josh, your members overall on the outlook for the full year, I would assume it's heavily dependent on what happens with tariffs after this 90-day pause.
Yeah, you saw a good example on Friday with Walmart, where the CEO gets on an earnings call, and he can't give any forward earnings guidance because the variability in what their earnings are likely to be is too wide because of the threat of tariffs for him to make a reasonable prediction, which is what people expect on earnings calls. Our members are remaining optimistic, but they're optimistic depending on a good trade environment in which they can operate.
All right, Josh Bolton. Josh, thank you for the update, and we'd love to hear from you again soon.
Thanks, Becky.
Coming up next, Rick Santelli watching the moves in bond yields and joins us from the CME right after the break. Plus, it's another big week of earnings. We're going to preview the retailers that are reporting and what investors can expect. As we head to a break, take a look at shares of Netflix. JP Morgan downgrading the stock to neutral from overweight. The firm saying there's no change to its long-term bullish view on the company, but its analysts believe the near-term risk-reward is more balanced after a significant run-up in the stock. Squawk Box returns in a moment.
I am here.
I am here.
I am here. I am here.
I am here.
There's a place that's been making one advanced cancer discovery after another for over 75 years.
I am here.
I am here.
At Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, what we learn from caring for our patients drives the momentum of discovery in our labs, which makes our patient treatment even better.
I'm here because of Dana-Farber.
What we do here changes lives everywhere.
Where are all the animals, Dad?
I know, kiddo. Just not our day.
It's a rare thing when someone you've been with for so long finds a way to surprise you. It's like discovering E-Trade's easy-to-use platform now comes with expert insights from Morgan Stanley to help you navigate the markets.
Can you do a dolphin? Sorry.
Opportunities can be hard to find, like catching lightning in a bottle. In uncertain times, it's tempting to retreat or simply wait and see. At CME Group, we empower those who act. We deliver tools to help manage risk and capture opportunities in every market climate, across every major asset class, to seize each possibility at precisely the right moment. CME Group, opportunity is everywhere.
At PGIM, finding opportunity in fixed income today helps secure tomorrow. Our time-tested fixed income suite, backed by over 145 years of risk experience, helps investors meet their goals. PGIM Investments, shaping tomorrow today.
Welcome to Club Champion. Welcome to lower scores, longer drives, and round after round of holy. Oh yeah. Full bag fittings are just $100 with code PERFECTFIT at clubchampion.com.
It's a rough and tumble market. So at Federated Hermes, we put the stocks in our MDT portfolios through a ruthless vetting process because no one wants an investment that cracks under pressure.
Overtime's about understanding what just happened in the markets that day and preparing for tomorrow. I'm looking to talk to sophisticated investors, beginning investors. I'm always learning.
Closing Bell Overtime, weekdays 4 Eastern and streaming on CNBC+.
I get my ideas from Mad Money everywhere. I look at everything as a stock. I study it all the time. My viewers are my bosses. You come to my show and you learn how to do stocks.
Mad Money, weeknight 6 Eastern, CNBC.
I love the viewer. It means everything.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. The futures this morning are under some pressure. It looks like the Dow futures are down by about 230 points below fair value. NASDAQ futures down by more than 300 and the S&P off by just over 60. If you check out Treasury yields this morning, they have been higher. The 10-year right now is yielding 4.55. The 30-year is above 5%. It's at 5.03 right now, and that's the highest level we've seen since November of 2023. Let's talk a little bit more about the move in rates. Rick Santelli joins us from the CME. Rick, there are so many things that are swirling around this. We know about the Moody's downgrade. We know that that raises some concerns about things that we already knew were out there for the last decade and plus. What do you see with these moves in the Treasury market this morning?
Well, you know, part of me wants to look at the downgrade as something probably a bit more important than it is. And what I mean by that is as we see our politicians in D.C. trying to figure out and push through the budget, I would hope that the Moody's message and some of the agita that the media expressed when it occurred will hit home. I would like to see a little fear on deficits. I would like to see the threshold of worrying about deficits raised a bit.
Connection
but
lost.
That's not the reality. That's what I wish. I think, Becky, the reality is that it really is putting things in line. I think even the ones in 2011 and 2023, you know who's the best rating agency in this day and age we live in? The markets, the big users, the end users, the purchasers of these securities. But I will point out that it is no surprise to see as we try to tackle the budget and this particular president, how the press is looking at every little thing that occurs in a way that maybe is not normal in history, is also in a way a good thing because as they discuss the budget, we've talked about this long before some of these rates moved up, that focusing on that is going to focus on debt and deficits. And that's what the story is, in my opinion. I know that there's a lot of anxiety about certain auctions, and I've expressed them. In the last auction, the 30-year auction that we had last week was kind of weak. Some of the bidding processes have changed, and some of the foreigners maybe were the weakest showing up at that auction in 5 years. However, some of the other bidders, called direct bidders, were some of the strongest bidders in 15 years. So the complexion of who's purchasing securities may be changing. I don't think the nearby issue is our ability to sell debt. I think the nearby issue is going to be the markets are going to raise the red flag because of the attention that we're being placed on debt and deficits, and that's exactly what's showing up right now in long-dated yields.
You always grade all of these auctions for the treasuries, for the notes. Today, I think, what is it, 3 month and 6 month that we're expecting today? I do know people are going to be watching that pretty closely. What have you seen over the last couple of Mondays when you see these auctions? What do you expect today?
Well, I think that the bill auctions, I worry about much less than some of the longer dated auctions, but it is something to pay attention to because the Treasury, current Treasury, and even the past Treasury under Janet Yellen, they do find a propensity to try to do a lot of bills. And the reason is that there's this notion they're going to be able to tackle things and bring rates down. So why put paper out there at higher rates when you can do the bills and slosh around and eventually maybe peg it to lower rates? But the bill auctions, the demand does waver a bit, but all in all, don't see any issues on the bill auctions other than maybe size will have to be ramped up a bit.
What other auctions should we be paying attention to this week? What are you paying attention to?
You know, I think that, well, first of all, Wednesday we have a 20-year auction. 20-year, like 7 years, is going to garner you big information. I would continue to monitor the combined direct and indirect demand at auctions, especially the 10s and 30s, knowing that some of the paths to get these securities and the whole process is morphing a little bit. Some of the relationship between those entities that can directly intertwine with auctions versus indirectly through intermediaries gets a little blurry. But all in all, we had Treasury International Capital Flows data out last week, Becky, known as TIC data. And I just don't see that there's any huge changes out there, although as rates move up, what that's telling me is that the ante for this poker game of debt has gone up. When rates go up, it means investors pretty much are going to be demanding a little bit more to take the added risk that's put into the system when the U.S. is not only on a rising debt parameter, but the current administration isn't really making a positive difference there, at least based on the static measurements being done by many of the, like OMB. Once again, when we put forth budgets or any kind of tax changes, I prefer a more active versus static evaluation, but we're just not there yet. Dynamic scoring, maybe it would make a difference. Look at the Journal today, Becky. Here's what it said. It said, if we do nothing, we let the tax cuts expire, to be $2.7 trillion difference in the deficit. The problem is, if you let those expire, the loss of growth isn't counted. The numbers would be bigger than $2.7 trillion. So it's an apples to oranges comparison.
Rick, thank you. Appreciate your kind of guiding us through this stuff this morning. Really good to see you.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, coming up next, we're going to talk retailers and some of the big earnings reports expected this week. We're coming right back after this.
There are some things that work better together, like your workplace benefits and retirement savings.
Presentation looks great.
Thanks. Voya provides tools that help you make the right investment and benefit choices so you can reach today's financial goals. That one. And look forward to a more confident future.
That is one dynamic duo. Voya. Well planned, well invested, well protected.
Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, unlocking the power of Thinkorswim, the award-winning trading platforms. Bring your trades into focus on Thinkorswim desktop with robust charting and analysis tools, including over 400 technical studies. Tailor the platforms to your unique needs with nearly endless customization, and track market trends with up-to-the-minute news and insights. Trade brilliantly with Schwab.
Just back is sore. Let's go! Ice. Hot. Ice works fast, heat makes it last. Icy hot, just so back.
Decking and railing that stands up to whatever you ask and bends to your every whim. Trex, performance engineered for your life outdoors.
Experience the power of CNBC Pro. Never miss a moment with exclusive access to market-moving interviews and stock picks. Become a smarter investor with the power of CNBC Pro. Go to cnbc.com/getpro now.
Luxury isn't about where you go. It's about how you feel getting there. With the thrill of 375 horsepower and the convenience of a 14.5-inch display. It's about being able to see things bigger than ever. And turning a playlist into a concert. Welcome to the 2025 Genesis GV80 and GV70. Lease the GV70 for $479 per month or get 2.99% APR exclusively at your DFW Genesis retailers.
You don't get no second chances in March. It's win or go home. I knew that I was gonna have to step up.
My teammates look to me to be our leader.
Shares of Reddit down this morning, the social media platform getting downgraded to equal weight by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo saying that the recent user disruptions are likely to be more permanent than previously expected. Wells also citing increased competition from Google's AI search capabilities. That stock is off by 7.33% this morning.
Meantime, big week for the retailers. Home Depot, Target, TJ Maxx, and Ross stores are some of the companies reporting. Joining us right now is one of the analysts who covers the sector, Eric Clark, AccuVest Global Advisors Portfolio Manager and CIO. What are you expecting? And maybe more importantly, if you're an investor, what should you do ahead of these numbers?
Well, I mean, retail has definitely been bifurcated. You know, the home builders, they're cheap. They have terrifically low comps, but we don't really seem to have a catalyst with rates going up. So we don't really expect too much out of those, out of Home Depot and Lowe's. You know, they had about 8 consecutive quarters of negative comp sales. They had positives last quarter. It'll be interesting to see where we go for this quarter this week, but we're just lacking the catalyst on the home side.
Is there a retailer right now you think that has a catalyst?
Well, I think TJ Maxx continues to be a great place to be. That, you know, they're focused on giving people great value, giving them branded apparel as well as home goods. So the home goods side has a little bit more tariff exposure, but TJ Maxx has been a good performer. It's up 11% year to date, I think. And that's delivering the value that people need when they're being squeezed from inflation.
What do you make, by the way, of the comments by Scott Bessent over the weekend and the president as it related to Walmart? And do you think, could you see that coming to other companies as well?
Well, I guess perhaps, but these are for-profit enterprises, so they thrive on high volume and low margins. So when their margins are getting squeezed, they have to do something. Obviously, operational efficiencies are part of that, but I think it's a little wrong-footed to be bashing the retailer when they're doing whatever they can to keep prices low.
How do you feel about either transparency or indicating to the customer why something's moving, especially if it's big, if it's a big material item?
Well, I love the transparency. Consumers love the transparency. The administration clearly doesn't love transparency because that runs counter to the narrative. But in the end, these consumers are doing whatever they can to keep traffic high, to keep delighting customers, and they'll use operating efficiencies where they can, but at some point you have to raise prices just a little bit to offset that to keep your margin stable.
Do you imagine there's going to be more M&A activity in retail land? I'm thinking just last week, obviously, the Dick's Sporting Goods deal with Foot Locker, and whether you think that portends more action in the same space?
Well, I'm actually surprised by the Dick's because they were doing pretty well. I'm not sure that's going to be a great acquisition for them. We'll see. But, you know, if you are a second or third tier retailer, then yes, you're thinking about M&A to try to figure out how to survive. But, you know, the biggest retailers are the best positioned to deal with these kinds of problems. They've been through it for multiple decades, different scenarios. So that's why we're certainly staying up in quality and up in market cap with the 1 or 2 market share companies, because not every company thrives when inflation and interest rates are where they are.
Okay. Eric, want to thank you so very, very much for joining us this morning. What's the one company you're looking for to surprise you, by the way, either way? Any surprise, you think, upside or downside?
You know, I'm looking for Deckers, actually, later this week. The stock's down, 35% so far, and they had a tough quarter last one. The guidance was a little bit squishy. And so, people still need, their sneakers, and Uggs and Hoka are still really strong brands. So I'm looking for that one to maybe surprise to the upside.
Want to thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Meantime, a programming note, you're not going to want to miss this. Tomorrow, a very big interview live with IAC and Expedia chairman Barry Diller on his new book, Life and Business Lessons, and a lot more. It's going to come up at 8:30 Eastern Time, and we're going to have a lot more, actually throughout the entire broadcast, about that book, which is called Who Knew? Without a question mark. So it works in 2 different ways, and we can talk about what that all means, and we do.
I read the excerpt
with Barry.
that's out. The book is actually out.
It's fascinating. Yeah. It is so fascinating in so many ways, and we're really looking forward to that conversation tomorrow. In the meantime, make sure you join us then. Squawk on the Street begins right now.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to Squawk on the Street. I'm Carl Quintanilla with Jim Cramer, David Faber at Post 9 of the New York Stock Exchange. Futures lower, yields higher after that Moody's U.S. debt downgrade Friday night. Long bonds back above 5 as we brace for a hectic week of retailer earnings and some Fed speak. Our roadmap begins with Moody's downgrading the credit rating of the United States, pointing to growth in government debt.
President Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent both piling pressure on Walmart and its CEO over possible price hikes that would be related to tariffs. What could that mean for the retail giant and its CEO, Doug McMillon? And NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, speaking overnight. He unveils plans to build a supercomputer and technology that will speed up communication between AI chips.
Let's begin with market reaction to Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating. Jim, Bessent on Meet the Press, and then Hassett this morning trying to further this notion that it shouldn't really come as a surprise to markets.
No, and we got to go back to when there was a surprise, of course, when we saw S&P downgrade our debt AAA to AA+, and that was, we got hit pretty badly, down 6.6% in August 5th of 2011. But then we had Fitch downgrade us, and that was not that bad. That was a down 1.38 and that's kind of, I'm wondering whether that's going to be like this. And then David, what's happening that didn't happen then was that there's an alternative. The money keeps going to these European stocks.
Yeah.
And it's rather amazing because when you look at dollar denominated, you got Germany and Spain up 30%.
In terms of their equity markets.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question. Even if we get downgraded, does it mean there's anywhere else to go in terms of a bond market?
No.
There really isn't.
No, there isn't.
I mean, Germany's is nowhere near ours. Who has a better credit rating? I don't know. You're going to go to Switzerland? You're not going to be able to deploy a lot of capital.
No,
in Swiss bonds.
Yeah, but maybe you want to go to cash in our market rather than being long.
And it doesn't mean, by the way, that it is not a recognition of something. By the way, the Treasury Secretary has been talking about consistently.
Exactly.
And I heard him at Milken because I did a panel right after him. That was a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
6.2, 6.3% of GDP in terms of debt right now. It's unsustainable in their opinion. It needs to come down. Interest costs, as our viewers well know, approaching very close to $1 trillion, only going to go up next year. And by the way, the tax bill that seems to be making its way through Congress is, at this point, doesn't seem to be anywhere near the deficit reduction that one might hope for if you were worried about the things that Moody's clearly is.
And you got, in 2011, you actually did get a decent package that people felt was actually going to do something to the deficit. I don't think anyone, there is a level of acceptance of this horror that it seems to only dawn on younger people when I meet them who just say, the only place to go is crypto.
As Bitcoin gets above 107K this morning. Actually, I think at one point, the market cap of Bitcoin surpassed Alphabet's, yes?
Well, I think that Bitcoin is where, I was doing a bottle signing for my wife at Total Wine & More for mezcal, and younger people, they don't want to talk about stocks. They just talk about what a mess this debt is. So we're buying crypto, and one of them said something really interesting to me, which was like, the president is no longer as focused on the market. The president's focused on Bitcoin. Now, I think that there have been a series of articles about the president of Bitcoin, not that complimentary, but it does point out to the fact that he sees more than...
Yes, well, this administration is a lot more interested in allowing for the growth of crypto.
Yes.
And that could have a lot of positives. I wouldn't say necessarily Bitcoin specifically. And then, of course, there's been a lot of criticism about the president's decision to issue his own meme coin and things of that nature, and Liberty World Financial, what they're doing. But that said, it's 180 degrees from the last administration when it comes to crypto overall.
Yes, thank you. I agree. I think that older people just kind of laugh at this and just say, I've been through this. They're not going to make any changes in Congress. So it's going to be one-off. It'll be down. Then some people say to me, hey, listen, this is going to be the Achilles heel for the president. If they don't get this, if rates keep going, then we're going to get into a whole new thing about inflation. Look, rates should go higher, judging on the deficit. But again, what you said is where are they going to go?
Where are buyers who are looking for, right, with the reserve currency and everything else? That's true. But if they go higher, it only increases the pressure on our own budget as well.
Yes, it
because
does.
interest costs only go up. And you can imagine, I mean, how do you feel as a U.S. taxpayer at the idea that what have we got, a $7 trillion budget, $1 trillion of it is interest costs?
I just think that I thought that we were going to have the budget cut because of Doge. It's obviously didn't work.
No, and the Journal points it out pretty plainly today. The bill, as it stands right now in the House, does not cut the deficit. In fact, it adds by $3 trillion by 2034. That's Moody's point.
Yes.
David mentioned 6.7%.
It is.
It's going to 9.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I look at it as someone who just says, how could they not try to cut this deficit? How could they continue to be part of the problem? So I understand the downgrade, but I also understand the notion that if the Republican Party is no longer the party of fiscal responsibility, who is? Who is responsible?
Well, if you were to raise taxes or allow the 2017 tax cuts to expire and do nothing, you obviously would raise revenue.
Yes, you would.
But that coupled with tariffs probably makes the possibility of a recession far higher, doesn't it?
I think it does.
Which is also B of A's point today about the downgrade. The timing, in their words, not a coincidence. Moody's appears to be sending a message. It thinks the policy changes will put us on a worse trajectory. That is, tariff revenues won't offset the cost of the tax cuts. We agree.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that some of that ties into what Besson talked about with Walmart. You know, you better keep your prices down. Now, Walmart, where I think that they've gone wrong is that Walmart has actually tried very hard. They have their own brand, which is very inexpensive. But if you're Target, which is the #3 retailer of the brick and mortar, you know, they have 400,000 people working at Target. Target can't go against Walmart on food. Walmart's just huge scale. I'm worried.
Yeah.
I think that Walmart...
No, listen, I mean, Walmart is definitely feeling the heat, right? You had the president tweeting. You had a number of other, I mean, you had Secretary Besson as well talking about it yesterday. There's the
well, they weren't blaming the tariffs. What they were saying was, we're going to keep our prices down. The tariffs make it harder. Who doesn't think that?
Besson did say he spoke to Doug McMillon. This is what he said on Meet the Press.
I was on the phone with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday, and Walmart is, in fact, going to, as you describe it, eat some of the tariffs that, just as they did in 18, 19, and 20. The other thing, though, that we are seeing that Doug passed along to me, that with their consumer, the single most important thing is the gasoline price. And gasoline prices have collapsed under President Trump. So we are seeing that. The other thing that will happen, that is a direct tax cut for consumers. Then the transportation costs are also a big input. So let's see what happens. What you were describing was Walmart's earnings call. The other thing that companies have to do, they have to give the worst case scenario so that they're not sued.
That's in addition to the president's post over the weekend about Walmart and eating the tariffs. I'll be watching, and so will your customers.
Well, yes, but if the customers are watching, they're going to be thrilled because the customers can go to other places. You want to go to Dollar General? Fine. You want to go to Target? Fine. You can go to Amazon same day for some things, but do they know that Walmart's prices are appreciably to be lower than everybody else's?
Well, in some ways they're going to be lower, and to your point, I think it's not Walmart. It's just you're either going to pass along the tariffs, you're going to eat some of them, you're going to raise prices in other areas, perhaps that allow you to subsidize the costs of certain goods that are tariffed. You may choose to try and gain market share, as CFO John David Rainey made clear to us in an interview right here last week. You may choose to compete in certain areas and lower price where you know you're actually not going to make any money but gain market share. But Jim, Walmart is not, I mean, it's not like Walmart's doing it and nobody else is going to. No. Walmart actually, as a result of what they said, gave permission to everybody else to raise prices.
How do you think the reaction would have been if Yellen had gone on Meet the Press and said, I spoke to Walmart and they promised me they're going to price the way we suggest?
Well, inconceivable. inconceivable. I think that these people all feel that they are part of like Bessent was a fund manager for 35 years.
Yes.
You've got the president who's aware of Walmart, and you also have a lot of like, hold it, if I'm going to tell Apple they shouldn't be in India, I can call these guys and tell them they owe a lower price. Like Nixon wanted you to lower price.
Yeah, it's like an extra seat on the board, as we talked about last week.
Well, I mean, someone said to me, I talked to someone, and I said, look, it was actually a very important CFO. He goes, you act like that Trump's on the board of Walmart. And I said, well, he acts like he's on the board of Walmart, so why shouldn't I think about it?
It is interesting. I feel like we went through this in the first Trump administration as well, just sort of the very close linkage to business and the cajoling, the threats, the rewards as well. Obviously, you saw some of that in the latest trip to the Mideast. You know, Jim, you've made the point, though, and I think it's an important one. Walmart is probably going to exit this period a beneficiary.
Oh, my God.
Not being hurt, but to the point I just made and the CFO made, maybe being able to take market share in certain areas. It's the retailers who don't have their heft, who don't have Costco's heft, Amazon's, Walmart's, that conceivably are going to be in a weaker position.
The scale. I mean, when you look, Walmart sells a lot of clothes, so does Kohl's. How does Kohl's make it? $8 to $7. I mean, Kohl's they just had another CEO. Target reports this week, and there are a lot of people who are really worried about Target because Target has so much product made overseas. Walmart's about 2/3 domestic, but a lot of that is grown here. Walmart has a line of $5 food that is quite good. And I think that no one can compete with them. And I wish the president had realized that Walmart is the lowest price as it is. Maybe Costco.
But Bessent's argument, all right, what do you know, gasoline prices are down. It's an important component of everybody's budget. Conceivably, you're going to be getting a tax cut. Seen as positive.
To the chagrin of Moody's.
To the chagrin of Moody's and our overall budget deficit.
Only the rich will get tax cuts, and they don't shop
at Walmart. Well, you do, and you're rich.
I love Walmart.
Yeah.
I think Walmart offers great prices.
I know. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, like anyone who's actually been to Walmart, and I don't know how much time the president spent at Walmart, would realize very quickly that, wow, this place is so much cheaper than everywhere else. But they don't think like that. And then Walmart didn't really give a projection. They didn't know what they're going to earn. What, do you think that they go to Walmart?
No.
Do you think kids go to Walmart?
I don't know anybody's shopping habits. I rarely shop, but I actually do go to Walmart.
I got this great Dickies jacket for $27. I thought it was $50. I swear to God, I thought it was a $50 jacket.
Congratulations,
27.
Jim.
Isn't that just the greatest? Isn't that just a victory?
How do you get rich in this country?
Makes your day, doesn't it? When you just get something, you're like, look at that.
I stole it. It was a steal.
Getting a bargain never gets old, no matter how rich you are.
No, lawn furniture.
That's all I
really
need.
Fabulous. You know, because I'm going to go to
I'm
that
so
Green Bay
susceptible
Eagles
to
game.
that. Raise the price up to 300, then tell me you're discounting at 30% from what.
That's
and I'm like,
that's how we do it with tariffs.
Perfect. I'm in.
No, look, to call Walmart, will they call Target? I told Brian Cornell I wanted his prices rolled back to 2018, and he nodded. He nodded. You know, okay, like you do on the podcast. Yeah. I think he wants. Did he say yet that he wanted Nvidia's Grace Blackwell down? What else does he want down?
He wants everything down in price.
How about tickets to
not the meme coin though?
How about
that
tickets to the Knicks against the Pacers?
Those are going to be fairly inflationary prices.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. We didn't know that.
Speaking of NVIDIA, we are going to get a closer look at NVIDIA. Busy weekend as Jensen Huang talks AI strategy at Computex in Taiwan. Take a look at the pre-market. We got a bunch of other chip news in Qualcomm, SMCI. Financials are a focus with JPM's guidance today. Got some M&A at Blackstone. Stay with us.
At AT&T Business, we guarantee our best deals on any smartphone with your choice of our best plans. What we can't guarantee, your employees having a similar work style. You hired them. Or your staff, all having the same vibe. I like this style. And your design team being on the same page.
Bold choice.
For 2002.
What AT&T does guarantee, our best deals on any smartphone with your choice of our best plans for any employee. And we mean any.
He sure knows these parts well.
Folks say the planes whisper to him.
Outlaws in 500 feet. Rerouting.
Making a left! Innovation changes everything.
Man, he's good.
With one investment, you can access the NASDAQ 100 innovators who are rethinking the world. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in prospectus at Invesco.com.
Pedro's parents planned for adventure, but they didn't plan for him to make a new best friend. You were made to get more than you bargained for. We were made to help you save on packages. Expedia, made to travel.
Never miss a moment.
Having a 10% global tariff, that's going to help reduce the trade deficit, but also reshore and create fairer trading conditions with our partners overseas.
Companies recalibrate but will not reshore. 10% is not enough for companies to reshore.
Retailers, they're going to look across all of the demand for those products and maybe change prices on other products that might not have a tariff applied to them.
Parental crust from Little Caesars is the GOAT.
Good morning.
Stop that. Large stuffed parental crust from Little Caesars, just $9.99 for a limited time.
Pizza. At least we know whether you grill with charcoal, gas, pellet, or griddle. We've got the perfect grill for you.
Have you traded
Because
yet?
only your local Ace has all the best brands in one
I'm
place.
just waiting.
Like Weber, Big Green Egg, Traeger, and Blackstone. With free assembly and delivery of your new grill, along with all
that
the
one?
sauces, rubs, and grilling extras, you'll have everything you need for your perfect barbecue. That's
I might open to see how it is before I take any trade.
what you need in stock. With service so good, it's guaranteed.
You see the squeezes on the radar is bearish now. 15, 30 is bearish squeeze. So I might dump more. Are you looking at the radar screen? Yeah, you see.
Today,
Yeah.
I'm very
So the
happy to
30 and the
announce
15 is
that we're
really
also building
looks like it's gonna go down.
AI for Taiwan.
But we'll
So
see.
today we're announcing that Foxconn, Taiwan, the Taiwanese government,
About
NVIDIA,
70%, 75%.
we're going to build the first
Yeah.
giant AI supercomputer.
Yeah, it's good
here for
to,
the AI
you know, with
infrastructure
Jordan
and
maps.
the AI ecosystem of Taiwan.
NVIDIA's Jensen Huang talking about the company's AI supercomputer plans during his keynote in Taiwan overnight. Just one of many
Hey, what's up, man?
announcements made by the chip giant at that event. They say Insanity's back. Jim, that's the headline this morning.
Yeah, oh, look, it's a great and enjoyable keynote. If you want to find out why everyone loves him, you can get it all in that. Because he's talking about how, look, I want people to buy some of us.
So I guess
They're
if
not
any
buying all of us,
resets or
which
anything you
then was
buy
made
this
him,
week.
he's
Not
making
bad.
some available to companies that don't use his stuff in the data, in the cloud. So I thought it was very, very positive. I mean, look,
You long?
yes, a string
I'm
of
waiting for
companies.
open.
And once again, if you wanted to buy what's
3 minutes looks like it's gonna go down.
I thought Marvell was mentioned very positively. Cisco
we'll see.
was mentioned. These are companies that can link it to other companies that may not right now be using them. But I think overall what he's saying is, look, this isn't a revolution. It's an information management revolution. We've never seen anything like it. David, he talks about how there was electricity was the first, okay?
Yes.
And then the internet, and now this. And he's the leader of this. And I don't know. I felt comfortable.
Cajun.
Obviously, people bid it up thinking there was going to be some sort of announcement, which was major countries. We didn't get that. I would have liked Singapore, for instance.
When you say major countries, what do you mean?
Well, yeah, we still have that.
Wouldn't that rely on the Trump administration?
Yes, but the Trump administration wasn't there.
Right. So why would there have been an expectation that there would have been an announcement like
Let's
that?
get a little dip
It would be
and
more
run
of
it
an
up
administration
later.
announcement than Jensen Huang.
True, but I know
Hopefully.
that there are big countries over there that want to have sovereign AI. But I guess they didn't feel they had the permission to buy to get it yet.
He's long.
remember, everything was led by.
But we know we're waiting for those new rules.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's what we're waiting for. That is not going to be announced.
I'm just gonna wait for the botnik signal.
By Secretary Lutnick, or and that.
But the sovereign AI was very significant, and the stock moved up greatly on that.
Yeah, well, I think on the deals from last week in Saudi Arabia, and what they're doing, to your point on sovereign AI and some of the other countries in the region as well.
I just thought overall this was not a speech about how we've got to change the rules. It was more of a speech of we got a lot of things going. Was it breakthrough? I mean, I was listening to it. Man, it was on from 11 to 1:15.
Yeah.
I shifted it and did it at 3:30 after checking in with his people. That's still, David,
I mean, this
Twilight Zone era.
This is a company that will be generating enormous amounts of free cash flow, right?
So they're putting up something.
And so they can make all sorts of investments. It's not as though you're just static. They can continue to invest in what's coming next and continue to beat out their potential competitors.
One reset per account that you got. So let's say you buy 3 different.
We work with DeepSeek.
Yeah.
They work with everybody, and I think once again you come back and you say dominant player in this year, Carl.
Yeah.
Dominant player.
Oppenheimer, top pick today, 175 target. We'll talk more about it.
I mean, it goes down. It was up big last week. It was up 16% since the low. But there wasn't anything there which says raising numbers.
Kramer's Mad Dash coming up after the bell, after the break, along with the opening bell, as we get another look at futures here on this Monday morning. Don't go away.
No city is immune from financial challenges, but with Assured Guarantees municipal bond insurance, investors' bonds can be. Assured Guarantee, a stronger bond. We empower those who act. Those who see the correlation between things.
I might short. So we pump a little more.
Navigate risk by meeting every hurdle with a heightened awareness of what's possible. Constant assessment. Determine the best position. Catch the perfect one. CME Group, where risk meets opportunity.
Wow, looks like your hiring is making a lot of people happy.
ZipRecruiter's new tool, Zip Intro, is a game changer. It saved me so many steps in the hiring process. Look, I just pick a time and it handles everything, from finding great candidates to setting up interviews.
So, no more back and forth.
Right. I can just choose from this list and meet with them as soon as tomorrow. Oh, wow. Another dignified portrait of me.
Zip Intro. Post jobs today. Talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Try it free. Only at ZipRecruiter.com/CNBC.
Julio needs a place of her own, and fast. Thankfully, she's on Redfin. They update their listings every 2 minutes. And with so many options, she's bound to find exactly what she wants.
This one's just right. Is she leaving?
What's happening? It is happening.
Got eyelid itching, crusties, and swelling that won't go away? It could be.
Minutes.
We're very common and super irritating to your eyelids. Making us uncomfortable here.
If Demodex mites are partying it up on your eyelids, it's time to eliminate the root of the problem with Xdemvy. With 1 drop in each eye twice a day, you can kill the mites in just 6 weeks. Xdemvy is the first and only FDA-approved treatment that kills the mites that cause Demodex blepharitis, a common eyelid disease. Avoid touching the tip of the bottle to your eye or other surfaces to minimize contamination. Wait 15 minutes before inserting contact lenses. In clinical trials, the most common side effects were stinging and burning in 1 out of 10 patients.
Party's over, folks.
It's not you, it's Demodex mites. Talk to your eye doctor today.
Breaking earnings news. Home Depot.
Yeah.
Palo Alto Networks. Target. Snowflake. Reforming.
Yeah, it's dropping.
Expert analysis. Strategies for your portfolio. This week on CNBC and streaming on CNBC Plus.
Take a look at some S&P gainers before the market. Got an upgrade today of UNH over at TD Cowen. We'll talk about that one. Also, Humana's on the list on one insider buy on the tape this morning, Jim.
You see UNH? Oh my God, it's running it up.
A bit of a reversal.
I'll tell you, man, insider buying.
Yeah, I made a lot on it, though. I could have made more.
I think you'd think twice.
Opening bells coming up.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna dump.
Anywhere, just listen to and follow the Squawk on the Street opening
Yeah,
bell
2 days.
podcast.
Not bad. It should go down again. Should.
Billionaire media mogul Barry Diller on the ever-changing media landscape, Washington's impact on business, and his memoir, Who Knew? Squawk Box, tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern, streaming on CNBC+.
This combo meal's got combinations. Make this thing your own creation. Entree, drink, and choice of sides. Oh, and it's free to swap fries. BK, have it your way.
We, the lazy, declare that we will recline when we feel inclined. And yes, we feel inclined.
We answered our kids' questions all day. It's our time to prioritize. No priorities. Like, yes.
We put in back-to-back doubles. So now we'll be putting in extra OT right here.
We've checked off our to-do list.
Now we're checking off our to-done list.
We, the lazy, are taking back lazy.
By getting comfy in our lazy boy furniture.
Lazy boy. Long live the lazy.
Know what's even more genius than me, Richard? Having NerdWallet find a personal loan with the lowest rate for you. Just answer a few simple questions and BAM!
Wow, you are smart.
Yeah, of course, Richard. I've mastered the English language.
The Infiniti QX60. Combined. Luxury rediscovered. Invest in an Infiniti during the once-in-a-springtime event. We won't raise the MSRP on any vehicle before June 2nd. Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things. Changing things. Changing the way we fix things. Rolled up sleeves. Breaking through. Growing power to meet growing needs. Working to run the world on smarter energy every day. Taking power where the grid's never
It's been a good while.
Getting up and doing it again. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. Over and over.
I should have shorted it. I'm not short when it goes up.
Grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust
Short
Juno Ultra High
Orders
Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor recommended form of turmeric. It helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cuno, the brand I trust.
Wait. I don't know. It's going to hit.
Foresight and vision to anticipate the needs of future generations. To build strong portfolios that deliver
Just leave it as.
to innovate and adapt for what's just around the corner. Because after the
Down 2% overnight.
yesterday's, Nuveen knows your ultimate stakeholder is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Invest like the future is watching.
The opening bell is brought to you by Nuveen. Invest like the future is watching.
Yeah, it went down to 21,112. So near 2%.
All right, let's get to a mad dash. Got an opening bell less than 2 minutes from now. We get started with a new week of trading. So exciting. Except if you're a shareholder of UNH, it is not.
Wait a second. Wait a
I
second.
would dump more at open.
People sell things for many reasons, right? They get divorced. I don't know about that. They get, maybe something happens in their family. They need money. But David, why do they buy?
I'm gonna cancel this short.
Sometimes they buy because there's a
I don't
bargain.
wanna
Now,
risk it
typically,
yet.
these insiders, maybe they buy like 1,500 shares.
Oh, you got a minute left?
How about if you bought your Stephen Hemsley, returning CEO, who acquired 86,000 shares at 288? That's pretty good, 25 mil.
Give me a 5-year chart, by the way, guys. 5 years. Just to put this in perspective. Yeah, sorry,
Okay,
go ahead.
and then Tristan Gill, director of 3,700 shares. Timothy Patrick, director of 1,553. The CFO, come right in. The CFO's in there buying the heck out
Keep
of
it pump, and then we can short it.
So I just say to myself, if they really knew, like the journal says, that they're being investigated criminally, that's a very big buy that would.
That's a nice long. That's a nice long you had, Chris. Oh, you did? Oh, I thought you did.
Order filled. Order submitted.
So let's just say, when I saw 605, I was convinced that maybe we're too negative at the 300 level.
That's still long. I shouldn't take it. Already in at 220. Long position.
It's
Oh wow, those bear screens are gone. It just went out. Holy cow.
Don't see the offerings, for instance, that would make me want to own, say, cheap investment. Well, I'm going to do a segue. I was trying to get him to get into, but Jim, what you ought to be thinking about is the M&A work at the.
Oh, is that what you saw going? You saw that? I didn't pick up on it. Yeah. What can I tell you? So you wanted me to what? Talk about Blackstone and that deal they're doing?
That was kind of what I
mean, it's a Monday. We got a $5 billion equity.
That bot's up what? Almost 100 points. Wow.
Reflection
Gotta
of
wait
the
for the next
doldrums that
signal.
we're still in when it comes to M&A. Now that said, we did get that big cable deal last week.
Yes.
And that was a big one. One of the biggest of the year. And you certainly could argue, given the recent performance in the market, that things are going to start to pick up. Confidence will. But you're still dealing with a somewhat uncertain economic and tariff-related world.
We know Blackstone has a lot of data centers. We know
That squeeze up, man.
TXNM is in an area with a lot of data centers. I still think this is
Oh, you're
motivated
long now?
by the need to have cheap power.
It
Remember,
is. No,
they are not a generator.
They're not a generator,
Nothing's coming out, right?
but it is
No
related
leaves.
to the need for the fuels that power the electricity that powers the data center, that powers AI, right?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the premium, we can go through it if you guys want. 61.25. It's all cash. Blackstone, by the way, paying all equity, not even taking on debt. Don't anticipate increasing the leverage levels to fund the purchase of the company, they say. And as I pointed out, it's kind of 11.5 billion total enterprise value. You're talking 5 billion equity, so it gives you a sense a little over.
Would Apollo ever come in? I mean, there's someone who wants to be involved in this.
Well, they're all funding the infrastructure across the board, and they can do it and generate, they feel, very strong returns. I mean, another key area, of course, is actually data centers themselves. That many of the large the alternative asset managers, Blackstone, Apollo, certainly, others as well, where they will come in and they will be the majority of the equity, and they know right away their tenant is going to be Meta.
And yeah,
That's an awfully good tenant to have because you know you're going to get paid. You're not worried about that.
250 is getting hit down. I'm not sure. 250.
Because actually, the operation, by the way, Jensen, really nice tip.
CoreWeave is sort of doing the same
Orders
thing
submitted.
as many, in a sense. CoreWeave is relying on credit markets to a certain extent to help fund its ability to build a data center and buy all the GPUs where the underlying customer, again, is very strong.
I'm just saying that.
But Apollo, for example, with Meta, is I think it's in Louisiana. Again, sometimes is going to end up owning a majority of the underlying, and then it cuts the actual capex for Meta. It's no longer their capex; it's just lease payments.
Right. I guess I'm just saying that when I heard
Order
Jensen,
filled.
and we love CoreWeave for the data center. Now they are a large partner with CoreWeave. We saw how much stock they have.
Order
Yeah,
submitted.
they helped that IPO happen. By the way,
I'm
at 40
sure.
bucks, it was a great deal for anybody who bought it.
Jensen's doing pretty well on that.
Yeah, he certainly is.
What
Last
I'm
week.
gonna show this tournament
I
too.
had a natural gas company on last week, and
Order
I'm
filled.
gonna show this tournament.
it's the savior because the grid needs more power. I think this is a great acquisition. I think that all the companies that are in the business of low cost power, which is in, say, Texas, a good place, it's a great business to be in. And John Gray, who runs Blackstone, knows that this is just that their own data center
Dang.
company. It might be worth the price of
Oh,
time.
well. There we go.
Yeah, they've done very well. They're the largest owner of data centers in the country. I talked to John about it when we saw each
People
other.
don't seem to know that, no matter what we do.
Order canceled.
Yep, now my short.
Because they see no let up. I mean, we've got Carl, no signs whatsoever when it comes to
Yeah,
the
I
AI
took profit.
trade that there truly has been a diminution in demand.
Yeah, I'm just aiming like 5 to 7
and
points
no
only.
real signs of it.
I have
And that's why
4
Jensen says,
MNQ.
look, it's a worldwide
Go back
revolution.
in.
Because nothing works without them. By the way, he had those robots. He did hint that we're all going to get robots.
Order submitted.
He also said that they drive dogs crazy.
Order filled.
Took profit on this other
We're all gonna get
account.
one. What should I start putting some money inside?
I would.
It's going to be a little while.
20K.
It's going to be a little while.
But what he did say is the robots are built for the scale of our homes.
I know, but I mean, even Elon Musk, who tends to tends to be aggressive in some of his dates. Is talking 2030 until they really are producing a lot of robots. The optics robot at Tesla. Well, yeah, eventually, but even a million, getting to production of a million.
We've created automobiles in the history of cars.
That's true. Cars will happen.
He believes will represent. It will be the most valuable opportunity the world has ever seen in terms of from a business. Robots. I mean, he said that in his presentation
I'm back in at 2:59
employees
short.
from their last earnings. But not even close in terms of what it will mean in terms of a market and profitability.
But he also,
here's why.
Cars. I mean, there are many reasons why this is going to be.
He's long with the bot.
Tesla is the
Bot
biggest
got 100
S&P
points
lagger
now.
this morning. Some stories about the company now accepting Cybertruck trade-ins as the depreciation on the Cybertruck, according to Electric today, is almost 35% in a year.
Yeah, they're not great, but I do think against technology company, the company I'm most worried about is Apple.
Order filled.
I mean,
You read the Business Week piece today. Huge takeout story by Mark Gurman, who's often known as the Apple Whisperer
I'm still
over
trying.
at Bloomberg, just dissecting why their AI is not only behind but falling further behind, according to a lot of
I think
companies.
it is, and then
No siding
the
is not
president
well.
doesn't
We only
really
have two.
care for their Indian plan. But I don't know if they can specifically say, listen, we're not going to accept Apple out of India. We do feel, by the way, I do feel very strongly that Samsung's beginning to pick up some traction on this.
There's also the report today that the U.S. is interested in their partnership with Baba on AI. So there's a few different headlines working against the stock.
It's a parade of horribles for them right now. We obviously know that Amazon may not be able to write down the $20 billion check. I'm sorry, Alphabet. I also know that I think the Epic Games could be worth 30 cents. That Epic is not out of the revenue. There's now
Yeah, all those short squeeze got killed.
Right. These are really important. And look, the stock going down. I think you got to let it come down.
I don't think it's gonna get over 300, but if it does, I'll average
The
down.
influential journalist at Bloomberg who put that story out. And we've talked about the lack of anything real at this point, or certainly anything that's motivated their customer base to go out and upgrade their phones.
But they don't
in terms of what they offer for AI.
Perfect. The product has to be perfect. And once it comes out, everyone gets excited. The product is still the best in the world. I think that does matter. That's what they're. That's what
the
they.
Vision Pro perfect?
Order filled.
There are some industrial uses of Vision Pro that are working.
I remember when they said that about iPad, which eventually happened, just slowly.
Yes, it did. I thought it's interesting that during the debate, the ill-fated Biden debate, Dana Bash was using the and Tapper using the Apple iPad.
I have to cut it.
Trying to tell people, this is not so
We
good.
might have to cut this short if it goes up to over
You
310.
just referred to the Trump administration certainly is seen as potentially also watching Apple closely, as they are Walmart now. Because they've moved production of the iPhone, or trying to move a lot.
Oh,
of
this is the small count,
what is
right?
meant for the U.S. market and iPhone production from China to India.
That's why having a static.
Production from China, but what comes here, in part to avoid
Oh,
tariffs. By
okay.
the way, Carl, we got anything on a new India trade deal? I know there was some talk over the weekend about, or the president said they're willing to accept no, 0% on U.S. goods.
There were reports last week they would narrow the tariff deficit, the spread between their tariffs and ours. Hassett this morning said he wouldn't be surprised if we got some more deals this week. But it does appear, Jim, that Japan is going to play tough.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm gonna cut
EU's busy
Order
striking
filled.
deals with the UK.
I met one of the people who's on the Japan Trade Commission, and I said, "Well, I
Order
think you guys
filled.
are pretty close." And he said to me,
Yeah.
"Do you know something?" Really? Yeah. And I said, "Well, I hear what I hear," and which was, he said, circular reasoning. And by the way, a great guy who loves America just says, "Look, we gotta get the same."
Yeah,
deal."
it took me out earlier.
Korea's just a great deal.
Has Korea
Just
signed a
gonna
deal
wait.
yet?
We have a free trade agreement.
Scalp some short, long, whatever.
But we don't have a new deal.
No, he just feels that Korea's got the edge. Korea's got a good deal.
Well, you pointed out Samsung is a potential beneficiary.
Samsung, boy, I think Apple's very worried about Samsung being a winner. But
NQ is about to go green in a little bit. It keeps going up.
We have the big group chat. We just kicked out.
Yeah, I think it's
It was
gonna.
right, so we couldn't have any pictures.
Yeah,
What a
every
joke.
15 minutes looks
I
like
don't want
that's
to call him out
more
directly,
upside.
Michael Haley, but I really want something. It's like, hey, get a darn Apple phone. Don't wreck our chain.
The green bubble. Is that what you're mad about?
Yes.
Get it? Right?
Yes.
Who's this person?
Joker?
I don't want to mention his name.
That's what I said.
Order submitted.
My best friend.
Jim, the downgrade has some watching the regions today. Because we remember the SVB, the unrealized losses, the exposure to long bonds in their portfolio.
Well, I remember when Schwab had that, and what did it turn out to be? How about the greatest single buying opportunity for Schwab? These things roll over. Bank of America had it. People didn't like that. I'll give you a regional that I love, David.
Okay.
Let's see. Yes.
Lay it on me.
What do you have in your wallet?
Yeah, the deal closed.
Yeah. How's that stuff?
You've been talking about that for quite some time. What is stuck in your brain about that that's got you so fixated on Capital One?
I mean, the fact that it's up 14 today. Because I think that Richard Fairbank, the genius who runs Capital One, could very well use the Discover network to go against MasterCard, Visa, and American Express because it has a lower fee. How do you like that? They have 120 million cards. They have 120 million cards. Why couldn't they have their own network? Why don't they just tell the retailers, look, this is what we're going to use from now on, and we're going to save you a lot of money. And I think that why is the stock down now? Stock's down.
It's defying you, Jim. You don't like that.
I love this stock. It was going to be up big today.
Order filled.
Well, it's going to be up
Nice.
10.
Not a short hit.
Meantime, JP Morgan did reiterate their net interest income guidance for the year today. Credit card metrics healthy.
I showed earlier.
You can see the charge-off rates could be higher in 26.
That's the last month.
But my other short
like that.
back at
Yeah, by the way,
250, that got
JP
stopped
Morgan,
out.
I heard a lot of people talking about what he's going to say and why he's such a down.
Who, Jamie Dimon,
He's down.
chairman and CEO of JP Morgan?
People think he's a down.
They think he's a downer.
Dimon
the downer.
They think he's saturnine and gloomy.
Yes, sometimes morose, sometimes lugubrious.
Order
Well, he
filled.
just comes out and basically says, well, it's got to be a
No,
behave.
no running,
and,
just in and out.
Trouble. And that's how sometimes he speaks.
Yeah.
Well, I think he wants to remind everybody he's prepared for the worst because they have that balance sheet.
Fortress.
Thank you.
It's good in times of trouble, Jim.
Yeah, Fortress.
Guess it's still buy the dip.
Will be there.
mode.
And he's implying that others are customer. What does he mean by that, really?
Yeah, I think he's implying their walls are not as high. Their fortress is not as well defended.
Is David Solomon customer? Is that what he's saying?
I don't know if he's specifically making that aspersion.
You don't. He's saying basically that the cavalry goes to a lot of
One of the questions, of course, the journal today,
expecting a
right?
bigger dump.
Again,
Order
it's
filled.
what expect about succession there. Not that it's coming anytime that soon. Although the building is man, that building is something.
No, because
Your PC's working now?
I want to see it from the inside. Their new headquarters in Midtown, which
I've been
continues
there,
to,
really excited.
I mean, it's stopped off, but there's still
Some people said that that's Cindernuff, what he meant.
That sucks.
Fortress Cindernuff.
Zindernuff. What about Zindernuff?
Oh, still no fish, huh?
Yeah, you love
Every man dead or alive to do his part.
Yeah, I love what
Did he?
That's a deep track, but okay.
He told me this weekend he's doing better with the surgery. He said he's supposed to be on this week.
Stranger Things? Is that the limit of your
Stranger Things.
Mets.
Yeah.
Netflix down. And Netflix down.
Carl Banks, all these years together. Thank you.
We do have an upgrade
We lost that game
today,
last
Jim,
night
of
against
the
Yankees.
airlines. Delta United over at UBS.
Did you see that price target?
More confidence in the premium class as the markets have recovered is sort of the essence of their call.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about United Health.
My tournament short is getting crushed.
11, 22 to $13 order. Earnings.
It's just a YOLO account. It's up $3 grand. Now I'm down 1,500.
Smart. Yeah, anyone who's flew down, I'm on the flight path right now where I live, and you go outside. Typically, it's just a lot of planes. Flight path of Newark. Not a lot of planes. Not that that's necessarily the judge, but Newark is their home.
Yes,
field
it
advantage.
is.
Dang,
It's
you
amazing.
see that?
There's a lot of questions about it, of course, and how many, with the capacity there, and whether it needs to be significantly reduced. Our charts don't capture
It's not
like
holding
the
though.
actual. That thing, when I have it, it goes straight up and straight back down and then up a little
As
bit.
soon as this show's over, I'm going to get on that. I'm white on rice in that thing. I will solve
This
that
thing
problem.
doubled from the bottom in like in no time, and then cut it almost, lost it almost all. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't capture.
I gotta start turning my bonus. Get this to pay
Well,
out.
Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary of the United States, very happy about that.
If it pump again, I'm gonna short it.
Yes.
What was it? 345.
Order submitted.
But that again means drill.
But you'd be interested in drilling at low 60s?
Drilling new areas in Permian.
Well, the research I've been saying is we're at peak now because the investment's not going to be there. Because why would you if you're not going to make money?
Well, because there's new areas with new technology that we can reach that are actually quite exciting.
Where's that?
Well, okay. Do you need a?
What are you, Rusty Brazil? Is that who we're going to here?
You know, why? Red Count's gone nowhere this year, Jim.
No, I know, but I mean, it was going to be Rusty Brazil. See, what he does. I was at Total Wine this weekend in Norwalk, and I'd say a half dozen people said, "Do you hate him? Just do you hate him?" And I'm thinking,
Yeah, I think it might drop.
and they said, "Well, David Faber. I mean, David Faber makes fun of you every day."
Yeah.
And I said, "No, he doesn't." I said, "No, never." Rusty Brazilian made fun of me.
They don't understand. When you said your best friend, I was upset because I thought I was your best friend.
Well, you're my TV best friend.
Oh, that's so sweet.
You're my TV buddy. No, people want to know. Yes, Rusty Brazil's a really good piece out about a brand new area that they're drilling at.
Where? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, I can look it up.
All right, don't.
No, I think you're right, David.
The outside consensus. Consensus seems to be that as the price falls into the low 60s or into the 50s, that you're not going to get a lot more development.
You're absolutely right. At the same time, the technology has gotten so much better. That's all that Rusty said. The technology's gotten better.
Meantime, we're off the
Order
initial
filled.
lows as the long
Oh
bond
shoot,
is
my short hit.
right in front of briefly dipped to
Order
499.
submitted.
Here's around 452.
I don't know
We heard
why.
from Bostic today. He did say
I'll
he's
show
a
it
little bit more
345.
worried about the
So let's
inflation
see.
side of the mandate. We'll get Williams and Logan and Kashkari throughout the afternoon. Stay with us.
The Bond
Nice.
Report is brought to you by PIMCO, a global leader in active fixed income.
Agriculture is the main life in Sussex County, and I'm very proud of that. I felt like we were being left behind. Everybody around us seemed to have internet, but we did not. When I found out that Comcast was coming, I ran down the road and I said, welcome. High-speed internet is one of those good things that we needed to help us move our farming, our small businesses, our recreation forward. And now future generations will thrive here in Sussex County.
It's a smart move to get a second opinion. You do
Yes,
it when
I
you're
do.
looking for
She
a
along with you.
contractor. You definitely do it with medical advice.
Did you get funded account or?
We can help you see opportunities you may be missing. At Henyon & Walsh, it only takes a second to schedule your free second opinion. So what's there to lose? Speak to Henyon & Walsh, the second opinion people.
We planned well for retirement, but I wish we had more cash.
Order submitted.
Do you think those two have any idea that they can sell their life insurance policy for cash? So they're basically sitting on a gold mine? I don't think they have a clue. That's crazy. Well, not everyone knows Coventry has helped thousands of people sell their policies for cash, even term policies. I can't believe they're just sitting up there, sitting on all this cash.
If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you can sell all or part of it to Coventry, even a term policy, for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them. They're sitting on a gold mine.
Funny, we're gonna be
I don't
paying
hear
soon.
anything anymore.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-571-7900 or visit coventrydirect.com.
My oldest daughter, Camilla, she came out fighting. 2 days old, she had to have open heart surgery. All of a sudden, she's on, 5 different medications. Me and the pharmacist got so tight. She said, GoodRx can save you a lot of money. Save you that extra $200-300 a month. You do the math. The money we're able to save with using GoodRx, we're able to do all these extra activities. She can hit hard too for a little skinny thing. So it puts less stress on our household, and it puts less stress on our pockets.
And Peacock. Not every day you get a downgraded Netflix. Today it's JP Morgan going to neutral. Their price target sticks around $12.20. Jim, they argued 39 times 26 GAAP EPS.
Look, it's a cold stock business. It's not as bad as pounds here. But people just say, look, how can you not own it? And Netflix, it remains your go-to on the weekends. You know what? Look, food competes with it, so I've had to cut back on food.
Yes. As we pointed out, hanging on to 1185. Dow's narrowed some losses, now down 100. Stop trading with Jim is next.
This is our call to inaction, to answer the call of the recliner.
We're getting takeout because we've been out all day long.
It's the Lazy Boy Memorial Day sale. Great deals on your new favorite lazy spots, plus 0% interest for 48 months. We will take a load up by loading up on snacks. Hurry in. Memorial Day sale going on now. Lazy Boy. Long live the lazy.
Hi, I'm Jay Jackson. For almost 20 years, Abacus Life has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors. And in just seconds, you can use the free calculator at abacuspays.com to learn what your policy might be worth.
For many of my clients, selling their life insurance to Abacus was right for them and their estate plan.
Don't sell and lapse your policy without going to abacuspays.com first. There are no fees and no obligations. Get the real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus.
People everywhere are losing weight with LifeMD.
And I'm keeping it off with the LifeMD maintenance program.
Our approach is simple. We pair weekly shots with world-class providers and a maintenance program for lasting success. Lose up to 20% of your weight and keep it off with LifeMD. Check your eligibility for GLP-1 medications in minutes. Get started today at lifemd.com/TV.
Pro, all new investing tools securely linked to your brokerage accounts. Become a smarter investor with the power of CNBC Pro. Go to cnbc.com/getpro.
Keep pounding a rhythm to the brain.
Yeah, 15 still looks good.
Sometimes the greatest rush is not rushing at all.
3 minutes look like a
The
fade.
all-new 2025 Nissan Murano, your oasis, free from new tariffs.
At least we know whether you grill with charcoal, gas, or griddle. We've got the perfect grill for you. Because only your local Ace has all the best brands in one place, like Weber, Big Green Egg, Traeger, and Blackstone. With free assembly and
my
delivery of your
shorts
new
still
grill,
there.
along with all the sauces, rubs, and grilling extras, you'll have everything you need for your perfect barbecue. That sounds pretty perfect. Around the block, what you need in stock, with service so good it's guaranteed.
Let's get to Jim and stop trading.
One of the things that Jensen's been talking about, and also Dr. Took will have later in the week, is that you need AI tools to be able to look at, if you can, correlations between genetics and disease and health for a large number of people. So what did Regeneron do today? It bought 23andMe for $256 million in order to be able to get those correlations. I think it's a very smart deal. You may think they overpaid, but to have AI and that, you may be able to find specific patterns. And that's what smart people are doing with AI. And so I think that Len Schleifer is going to do that. They're really very good.
How expensive did 23andMe ever get? Any idea?
No, I don't know, but I know that it turned out to be worth a lot more than people thought. And I think one of the things that we've seen over and over again is that you use
I need to work on my trade.
NVIDIA to find out specific patterns about what you see, particularly for cancer. So I think it's smart.
How about tonight?
Okay, ITT tonight. I just think that one of the things that people have to recognize is these quiet companies just go up and go up and go up because they're plumbing and they're piping. They're these just generic companies that are so good that are doing so much better than the ones that we just hear about, think about. So I'm trying to emphasize those.
Look forward to it, Jim. We got certainly
Order
Home
canceled.
Depot tomorrow and some other big ones.
We had at Home Depot. Evercore said they like it and they don't like Lowe's. If you don't like Home Depot, you're not gonna like Lowe's. That's silly stuff. Right? Planning this weekend, guys. Already? Yeah, of course. One more weekend, I'm done.
Order filled. Order submitted.
They said planning. So you were planning a weekend.
A week.
You're
too.
planting.
I should have planned it this weekend.
Oh yeah, you're late. What happened? Oh, you were
Order filled.
mezcal.
I went to Europe with their in-laws, and I was selling mezcal Total Wine. I'll plant this week. It's just that most of my harvest won't come in until late August.
That's all right. We're patient.
Thank you very much. You all get tomato sauce. I'll bring you back some olive oil
You know,
from
you
Italy.
promised the tomato sauce. None has ever shown up for me. None.
Think about how you treat me.
Jim, we'll see you tonight. Mad Money, 6 p.m. Eastern Time as we come off the opening lows, 59.25. Don't go away.
Order submitted. Order filled.
Order filled.
Order submitted.
One of my favorite supplements
Order
is
canceled.
turmeric. Turmeric helps with healthy joints
Order
and
submitted.
inflammation support. And Cunol has the #1 doctor recommended form of turmeric. Cunol, the brand I trust.
The Omaha Steaks Memorial Day sale event, where you get 50% off.
Been shorting 363. Just in and out.
Juicy chicken breast, sides, desserts, and so much more. Order now and get our famous burgers free. To honor America's heroes,
Order submitted.
active and retired military will save even more. This Memorial Day, save big and get free burgers from America's original butcher when you visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
Hey, Fred Couples, welcome to Consumer Cellular. I hope you like orange. It's a bit bright. Yeah. All right, give me the pitch. Switch from big wireless to Consumer Cellular and save your money for extra rounds of golf and great coverage wherever you play. Nice read, Fred. Thanks, Ted. Ted and Fred. That sounds nice, doesn't it? I kind of prefer Fred and Ted. Oh, yeah, too late. I already had the shirts printed.
Save your green for the greens. See how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
You've asked me that 3 times already.
I did?
This is exactly how it started with Mom.
Worried about your brain health? Cerefolin Brain Wellness has a dual-action formula that slows cognitive decline while improving memory, focus, and concentration. Those taking Cerefolin Brain Wellness experienced a slower rate of brain shrinkage. Now also available without a prescription at cerefolin.com and Amazon.
It changed my mind.
Neurologist recommended Cerefolin Brain Wellness.
This is my coffee shop. We just moved into a bigger space, brought on another employee, and ordered new branded gear for the team. It was so easy. I just chose my product,
Order
added
filled.
a logo, and placed my order. Bring your own team
Order
together with
submitted.
custom gear. Get started today at customink.com. At Morgan Stanley, old school hard work meets bold new thinking. To help you see untapped possibilities and relentlessly work with you.
Order canceled.
filled.
I get my ideas from Mad Money everywhere. I look at everything as a stock. Everything. I study it all the time.
In and out those shorts 4 times
That's
already.
what the CEO does. You come to my show, you learn how to do stuff.
Order
When I have
submitted.
a CEO on the show, I want them to think I know their company.
It wants
as
to
well as
dump,
better
but
than
it's
they do.
not for
People
some
in the next
reason.
20 years than I have already. Let's go to Ryan in Ohio. Ryan, and I have one.
Mad Money, weeknight 6 Eastern.
Order filled.
Order
I
filled.
love the viewer. Means everything.
Order submitted. Order canceled.
Filled.
Good Monday morning. Welcome
to Squawk on the Street. I'm Carl Quintanilla with Courtney Reagan, David Faber here at Post 9 of the New York Stock Exchange. Sarah Eisen is on assignment. As for the markets, some minimal damage here. Dow's down about 70, holding on to 59.25 S&P as the long bond is backing off just a touch from 5% at 4.99. Coming up, Fundstrat's Tom Lee's going to join us with his thoughts on that Moody's downgrade from Friday that was weighing on the market. Plus, Walmart in the president's crosshairs after comments the CFO made on our show last week. We're going to break down what was said over the weekend.
But first, let's get some breaking economic data. And for that, we'll go to Rick Santelli. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, David. Yes, we're looking for
It's gonna drop. Give it time.
economic indicators expected down 1 full percent. It's hitting the wires at down 1%.
Well, it should.
So exactly as expected. And in the rear view mirror, -0.7% becomes -0.8. And do keep in mind, this is the 38th negative month out of the last 41. 38 out of 41 are negative, and -1% would be the most negative it's been since March.
Order filled.
Order submitted. Interest rates are coming off their worst levels. The notion of the downgrade and the tax policy that's being debated is certainly drawing attention to debt and deficits. But worst case scenarios don't seem to be met as interest rates are coming down a bit. But that psychological level of 5% on a 30-year bond and 4.5% on a 10-year and 4% on a 2-year are key areas to pay attention to. Carl, back to you.
All right, Rick, thanks so much, Rick Santelli. As Rick said, stocks under some pressure this morning after Moody's cut the U.S. credit rating by 1 notch from the highest AAA to AA1 on Friday. Agency cites government debt amid these high interest rates. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic weighed in on the downgrade this morning with our Steve Leisman. Here's what he said.
With the downgrade, it will have implications for the cost of capital and a bunch of other things, and so it could have a ripple through the economy.
Today's pullback comes after a standout week for the Bulls, of course, which saw the S&P jump more than 5%. Joining us here at Post 9 is Tom Lee, Fundstrat Global Advisors Head of Research and Fundstrat Capital CIO. Happy Monday, Tom. Good to see you in.
Yeah, happy Monday.
You really haven't been unnerved by anything since Friday night, have you?
No. I don't know if there's much signal in the downgrade Friday because I think the first AAA downgrade was signal from 2011. I don't think Moody's had any information that we didn't have on Friday afternoon. So I think markets should realize the bond market largely priced in the fact that the U.S. is really not AAA anymore. So I'd be viewing this as a buying opportunity.
That's it. You're not discounting the notion that the vigilantes have been reawakened a bit?
I think everyone should be aware the U.S. has an unsustainable path for debt, but I think the real signal will be when an auction fails. That happened a few years ago, and then we realized that was the time to really pay attention to the fact that we have debt sustainability issues. But I think a downgrade itself, I don't think it makes this much signal.
So we reclaim the 200-day. Is that a clear path to a new high, as some of the trading desks suggested this morning?
Yeah, in fact, I think today will be an interesting test. I'm assuming today's pullback's going to be really shallow, might even close positive, because most investors rage sold at the bottom in April, and then they doubted.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Is that your own, or have you heard that other place?
I've heard that. Yeah,
rage sold.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
And so as the markets climb, a lot of people sort of
Come on,
doubted.
drop it. I want to get out. No, I'm short
and so
anymore.
I think there's $7 trillion cash on the sidelines. Enormous skepticism
Order
from our
canceled.
institutional clients. A lot of folks sort of bet outside the U.S.
Order
I think
submitted.
there's going to be a lot of chasing into year end.
Although, a lot of shorts have been covered already, though. A lot of the hedge fund guys who actually got it wrong and rage sold, to your point, are in a very different position right now in terms of positioning.
Yes. No, and there's a difference between being short and versus having positive beta to risk assets. So I think most people might be flat on their books. But if the market is above its 200-day,
30 minutes near the
showing this
top
sort
now.
of impulsive buying, and you're flat, that means you're underinvested.
How are you evaluating potential changes in tax policy? Obviously, the market has been very reactive to any headlines on tariffs. What about this one?
Yeah, in fact, I think as we start to think about 2026, and it makes sense because we're in the mid-year, there's not only tax policy that can be a tailwind, it looks like it's going to be, but it's deregulation. I mean, several published pieces show that regulatory cost for U.S. companies is over $2 trillion, maybe as much as $3 trillion. It's a bigger deal than the tax cuts itself.
Yeah, obviously we've been waiting for some time about the regulation. So in this environment, the ever bullish Tom Lee, what are you looking at when it comes specifically to the Magnificent Seven? We watch those so carefully, but the Nasdaq, of course, under pressure here today.
We think the Mag 7's going to lead into year end because it's a group that fell first. It was widely owned, but it really got washed out. I think Tesla was a really good sort of case study. So I think the Mag 7 is going to reclaim its old highs. That's, of course, why the S&P should regain its old highs and of course, actually move above that before year end.
And what about financials? That's obviously an area that so many people were looking to early on. Is that still on your radar?
Yeah, financials are important. You need the banks to rally. They have been. If I was going to make a case for multiples expanding, financials is one place because not only did they prove themselves actually pretty resilient during Fed hikes and then during this turmoil, but they're kind of more tech-intensive companies with better credit profiles. So I think multiples should go up.
If we do revisit the highs, what needs to happen to push past that? I mean, how firm of resistance will it be?
Well, I think investors have to look past tariffs because if we're only trading tariff headlines, the markets are going to be range-bound. But again, as I look at 2026, I'm looking at companies that are battle-tested. They survived the tariff headlines. There might be freer trade. That's an upside for earnings.
Freer trade than we thought.
Yes, and we thought, yeah.
But earnings estimates have come down, have they not?
Yeah, but they're going to flex in both directions. Meaning, I think if we have deregulation, possible improved ability to export, tax cuts, that actually all supports higher earnings.
What the fuck was that?
S&P should be going up because again, we've taken away a black swan event. I mean, we did, the April to.
There was some news because a lot of my shorts just went in for some. I didn't cancel those.
Push for tax cuts?
Wow.
I think it's going to have almost no effect.
No effect.
Yeah.
Because
canceled. At the end of the day, the bond market
cancel this order.
Prices what they think the rate should be.
I don't mean from the market standpoint. I mean from the political optics standpoint.
Yeah,
wow, that's crazy.
But, at the end of the
NQ's
day,
going
the
green
US
now.
wasn't AAA anymore.
Orders submitted.
Was only 1 out of 3, so it's like not even a split rating, AAA.
So, Tom, is there anything out there? I mean, and to be fair, you've been bullish throughout. You were right during this period when a lot of others sort of, whether they rage sold or just got upset in general. But what, if anything, is top of mind for you in terms of concern?
Well, I think the most important is the consumer has to stay healthy because right now we're seeing this huge divergence, right? Like the UMich surveys show banana level inflation expectations, but the realized is low. If the consumer gets super cautious and retraces, then we have a recession. So I think it does come into consumers have to stay confident and keep their jobs.
So you're a believer in the data versus the sentiment?
Yeah, at the moment, this divergence between inflation and realized is actually the largest I think ever reported for UMich. And so I would say as long as inflation doesn't explode, then the consumer has marginally a chance to become even more positive.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of your former colleagues at JPM think that the hard data will catch up to the survey work.
Yes. And I'm paying attention because, of course, JP Morgan, they do a lot of homework and they've got credit card data, so we do have to watch it. Sure. So we just have to hope for the best.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you. Right? Well, we're just over 30 minutes into the trading session. Here are 3 big movers that you're watching. Novavax on the move after long-awaited FDA approval of its COVID-19 vaccine. But regulators limited its use to older adults and those above the age of 12 with conditions that put them at risk. Shares higher by 12.5%. Reddit is under pressure. Wells Fargo downgrading the stock to hold from buy, warning that Reddit, along with others that depend on search traffic, face big competition. More users turn to AI for search. Those shares down more than 3%. And watch Tesla, Chinese EV maker, Xiaomi announcing a new SUV that some are calling a direct competitor to Tesla's best-selling Model Y in China. While Forbes reports the company has over 10,000 unsold Cybertrucks sitting in lots across the U.S., shares of Tesla down more than 2.5%.
Let's turn now to the latest on tariffs and one company drawing the wrong kind of attention for the White House. The president taking aim at Walmart over the weekend after the company's CFO joined us last week and talked about the impact of tariffs.
We're wired to keep prices low for customers, but the level of tariffs that have been proposed is pretty challenging for all retailers, for suppliers, and And certainly our concern is that consumers are going to feel some of that. Some retailers, and certainly we'll do some of this at Walmart, will do, is they'll absorb a lot of that cost increase so that they can still flow that product, still be able to sell that. But the level of tariffs, that, at least that were originally proposed in early April, were more than what retailers can absorb. And so in able to manage their margin, they're going to look across all categories of products and ones and look at the elasticity of the demand for those products and maybe change prices on other products that might not have a tariff applied to them.
In response to that interview, the president posted on Truth Social, quote, Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, also discussed Walmart and tariffs over the weekend on Meet the Press.
I was on the phone with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday, and Walmart is, in fact, going to, as you described it, eat some of the tariffs.
Does that comment square with what you know, Court?
Yeah, it does. And that's what John David Rainey told us on the phone as well as on air. He said, look, we applaud the administration for how far they've gone, but it's not quite far enough as far as we're concerned. The prices, or the tariffs rather, are just far too high. Obviously, China has come down from 145% to an effective rate of 30%. And while Walmart actually does source 2/3 of what they make right here in the United States, or what they sell rather in the United States, because such a big portion of what they sell is grocery, 1/3 of it comes from outside. And the largest country of import is China. So that could be an issue. And then, of course, it's also affecting Mexico, Canada, India, and Vietnam. And so they're going to try to absorb some of those price increases or cost increases where they can so that it doesn't flow to prices. But it's going to be nearly impossible to do it across the board. If anyone can do it, it's Walmart, right?
You know, in some ways, Courtney, given that interview, if you brought us the CFO and we chatted with them and our viewers just heard again what he said, I thought
deep red on the evals because of that pump earlier.
See that as a positive because
Yeah,
in fact they did.
I didn't cancel some of the shorts, so it gets keep adding.
What we can, or at least you know, actually not
I need
take margin,
404 to
perhaps
get
give
out.
up margin.
Right.
I did think it was interesting that other products not affected by tariffs might actually go up a bit if they can take price in certain areas. But again, somewhat surprising that there's an unwillingness to accept any level of price increase.
Right. I mean, especially again, if we go up above where we are sitting currently with that effective tax on China as a tariff at 30%. Remember, that's also on top of other tariffs that existed in the previous administration, and then those 1930s tariffs. So it is quite high, and a company like Walmart also has a fiduciary duty to its shareholders to make sure that they are doing what they can to provide them with profitability. And I think what's going to be very tricky for us to watch, and I think this is going to be part of our job as financial news, is when the earnings come in for this current quarter, so for quarter 2, it may look like Walmart has outsized profits because of the way they do this accounting, where they have to take in the goods at this marked very high level of that cost of tariffs. And so it's going to kind of skew it. It's going to look like, oh my gosh, they had all this profit, but by the time they go through those items, it will sort of even out, which is why John David Rainey did not want to give operating income guidance for the quarter. He thinks overall it will even out, but it's going to be sort of up and down. Order canceled.
Yeah,
so that's going to be a tricky political message too, I think.
Earlier we were talking with
Order
Jim.
submitted.
Walmart can withstand this, but are there retailers that are going to be, you know, in a far more difficult position because they simply don't have the reach, and the influence and the share that Walmart does?
Absolutely. I mean, look, even a company, you know, like Target, which is a very big company as well. However, not as big as Walmart. Their portfolio is not exactly made up the same with that grocery. And so they sell more discretionary goods. And so even if they use the portfolio effect and move sort of that tariff increase to another product that's a little less price elastic, you still may see some consumers pulling back and then not buying more there as much as they would buy at Walmart because it's a grocery or consumable or replaceable item. And so that definitely could be tricky, and the companies are going to do what they can. But, you know, I think Target gave us a great example back in its last earnings, and we're going to hear from them this week. So, of course, we're going to want an update. But where they said, look, we sell $3 ornaments at Christmas time. it doesn't really make sense to then make a big banner that says ornaments $3.65. So they might take that 65 cents and put it on another product that maybe is a little more price inelastic, so that those ornaments can stay $3. So I think as consumers too, this is going to be a little tricky to see and feel exactly which products are getting these increases.
Yeah, Dana Telsey doing some good work week on week on
Sure.
specific products. Meantime, speaking of tariffs, we are getting some breaking news on that from the White House. Let's get to Eamon Javers. Hey, Eamon.
Oh, yeah.
Hey there, Carl. That's right. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt talking about this Walmart issue and tariffs just a short time ago here in the White House press briefing this morning.
The bottom's at
She was
3
asked,
minutes,
and part of the political
and
difficulty
then
for
the
this
top
White
is at
House
15 minutes.
is that the president's position has been that the Chinese are paying the tariffs, not sort of acknowledging the reality of the situation, which is that tariffs are charged to American importers at the point of importation. So American companies pay the tariffs. Their position has been that the Chinese are paying the tariffs and will eat those costs. So Leavitt was asked a short time ago whether or not that means that
That's not a
the
3 minute. You're
president's
talking
tweet
about that part.
Walmart means
That's
that,
what's
in fact,
at
Americans
over
will be
bought now.
paying the tariffs. And she did not agree with that. What she said was, she said she feels that the CEO of Walmart made that comment while he was on an earnings call, and she feels that CEOs on earnings calls are expected to give the worst case scenario. They say that the reality is that Chinese producers will be absorbing the cost of tariffs, and that's why China was so quick to hustle to the table. And inflation, she pointed out, is declining in large part because of energy costs are coming down. And Kevin Hassett, the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, this morning said, or National Economic Council, I should say, this morning said the same thing. He pointed to energy costs and inflation when asked about the Walmart comments, saying that those costs are coming down, so therefore costs for Americans will be coming down more broadly.
Thank you very much, Eamon. Of course, we know that retailers could try to ask producers in China to absorb some of that, but you are right. The tariff is actually charged on that bill of lading when it comes into the United States. And so whoever owns those goods when they come in, that's
and the argument, Courtney, just real quick, the argument has been from this White House that even though the tariffs are charged to the American importers here, they can have a lot of leverage pushing the Chinese suppliers because the Chinese suppliers need access to the U.S. market, right? They need access to the U.S. consumer. So their argument here has been behind the scenes, they can force the Chinese suppliers to eat the cost of the tariffs because of that market access issue. And that's a question for retailers to tell us whether they're having success in those kinds of negotiations.
Right, exactly. That's a very good point. And Walmart CFO did tell me, look, we're talking to everyone in the supply chain and all of our suppliers and vendors and seeing who can do what along the way. But it seems to remain that no one party is going to be able to absorb all of it. And at best case, maybe it will be split between the parties before it gets to the consumers. But Eamon, thank you very much for that update. Keep us abreast if anything else happens. Well, here's our roadmap for the rest of the hour. Jinsanity in Taiwan. Nvidia CEO greeted as a rock star at the conference over the weekend. We'll tell you what he said in his keynote and why what he didn't say could actually be more important.
Plus, JP Morgan is hosting its Investor Day. That is today, already making some headlines ahead of Jamie Dimon's speech. We'll give you the latest.
And some new details on the fate of the president's tax bill after a busy weekend and Sunday night in Washington. As Walk on the Street continues after this.
The all-new Infiniti QX80, a 450 horsepower twin-turbo beast of luxury. Invest in an Infiniti during the once-in-a-springtime event. We won't raise the MSRP on any vehicle before June 2nd.
These bills are crazy.
It should average down to 404.
She has no idea she's sitting on a gold mine. She doesn't know that if she owns a
Order
life insurance
submitted.
policy of $100,000 or more, she can sell all or part of it to Coventry for cash, even a term policy. Even a term policy?
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine.
Order
Call
canceled.
Coventry Direct
Order
today,
filled.
800-476-0100, or visit CoventryDirect.com.
Got no
Some
donuts. They
people
just sent me a
like
message.
doing things the hard way, like doing their finances with a spreadsheet instead of using Quicken. Quicken pulls all your financial info together in one place and updates it automatically. How easy is that?
Ace, we know whether you grill with charcoal, gas, pellet, or griddle, we've got the perfect grill for you. Because only your local Ace has all the best brands in one place, like Weber, Big Green Egg, Traeger, and Blackstone. With free assembly and delivery of your new grill, along with all the sauces, rubs, and grilling extras, you'll have everything you need for your perfect barbecue. That sounds
Not
pretty
long,
good.
are you?
Around the block, what you need in stock, with service
Okay,
so good
yeah,
that
sure,
you
she would. I just got out, so.
As a member of Navy Federal Credit Union, Nick feels financially at ease, which means he can worry about other things, like crossing this river. What if his feet get wet? Did he bring extra socks? Are there salmon in the river? Are salmon aggressive? Nick has a lot of things to worry about. But as a member of Navy Federal, his finances aren't one of them. Become a member today. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission.
Welcome back. NVIDIA just turning higher after opening in the red. CEO Jensen Huang speaking overnight at an AI conference in Taiwan, where he was welcomed by a large score of fans and reporters with what some are now calling Gen Sanity. Christina Partsinevelos has been tracking the action. Christina, what's the latest?
Well, the latest is not signing women's shirts, but he's definitely signing some hats. But NVIDIA is changing its data center approach by opening its platform to chip rivals. That was the biggest NVIDIA announcement at Computex. It's called NVLink Fusion, allowing customers to integrate their own CPUs or AI chips into NVIDIA's ecosystem for the first time. Marvell, MediaTek, Qualcomm were some of the partners listed. Competitor Broadcom, notably missing. Tech giants, though, can pair their custom silicon with NVIDIA's technology, potentially unlocking significant revenue growth as more data centers would adopt NVIDIA's server platform. So it's really about owning the entire stack. But Wedbush analyst Matt Bryson wonders if it's really going to grow market share because of limited demand for these third-party CPUs from Qualcomm, for example, and that hyperscalers would just prefer to use their internal networking products. But it's also why Qualcomm CEO told CNBC London this morning that the company will soon launch a new data center CPU specifically designed to connect with NVIDIA's GPUs and software, though the exact timeline remains unchanged. So big news coming from Qualcomm. Going back to NVIDIA, though, they also unveiled plans to partner with Foxconn on a massive AI supercomputer in Taiwan, powered by 10,000 Blackwell GPUs, with TSMC leveraging the system for research and development, as well as creating a second headquarter in Taiwan to provide proximity to key partners as well as employee talent.
So that runner you still have?
Were up, what, 16% last week, and Jordan Klein at Mizuho says a lot of momentum changers came in pretty hard for Jensen last week. And then we're also expecting a new NVIDIA AI
move it up more to 415 or
why you saw
something so
shares
you get
open
more
negative
profit
this
before it
morning,
hits.
and really just trending flat right now, David.
Yeah, Christina, although to your point, they are now flat. So they are up on the session, at least less than an hour in. Christina, thank you. Let's get the street's take. Bernstein analyst Stacy Raskin joins us. He's got a buy rating, 185 price target on the stock. Were you, in some way, Stacy, at all disappointed in terms of the announcements we got out of Taiwan from Jensen?
No, I thought they were pretty positive. I mean, like Gen Sanity, I guess, is a very funny. I think that's a good a view of how he's perceived over there. I thought the announcements were good. I think to Christina's point, the NV Fusion, was to me the most surprising. They are opening up the ecosystem to other partners, which I think is good. I thought to her point also, like the missing folks were also very interesting. Intel and AMD and Broadcom. They have a competing interconnect. There's an open standard called UA-Link that they've been trying to develop. You've got like the second tier ASIC players that are part of NVIDIA's thing. I mean, maybe trying to like boost them versus some of the leaders like Broadcom. I thought overall, look, he said that the GB200, like the current product in full production, GB300 well on its way. That's coming very soon. Bunch of other product announcements. Everything. I thought it was good. And again, the stock is, it's one day, but the stock is outperforming in a downtake today. Like I thought it was good.
Yeah, and as Christina just said, obviously very strong week last week. The diffusion rules are gone. Is that the last overhang though, in terms of at least what's going to replace them, and whether it still will put up some barriers to their ability to sell?
Yeah, so the diffusion rules are gone. So that does remove a near-term headwind, because remember, they report on the 28th. if the rules went in place like on the 15th as they were supposed to, they would have had the guide with them in place, and that may have caused some issues. It does look like, there was some talk about Trump replacing them with like individually negotiated bilateral agreements, and that does seem to be maybe where we're going, especially with all the announcements out of the Middle East last week. That could be good or bad. I think at least in the near term, as long as you don't have to sign them, to enable NVIDIA to sell, like I think it's okay. But ultimately, it may take time, to negotiate 120 like distinct, bilateral agreements. Personally, I also don't like the idea of tying this stuff to the trade deals, which would seem to be where they're going. But there was at least the deals that they signed with Saudi Arabia and the UAE last week were actually quite positive. They were very big. And if we start to see similar deals, elsewhere, I think this can be good. At a minimum, it doesn't look like you're going to be constrained in the near term in terms of what they can sell to the majority of the world. I think that's a good thing. That was a big worry when we were concerned that the diffusion was actually going to get put.
Yeah. I mean, given the free cash flow generation, just the size of this company and its ability to sort of outpace its rivals in terms of financials,
And that drop, I got out too early.
for moving into new areas that perhaps, and or new products beyond obviously the
Give me a 4-4, get out of this one too.
Look, so NVIDIA
There we go.
and Jensen in particular have been very good at thinking not just like one quarter ahead. Like, I mean, these
Yeah, the
thinking
3 minute
10
looks
years
like it might
out,
drop
right?
more.
It's
Because
very
we're
cool.
giving
The
the ball.
success that they're having today is the result of some of the decisions that they've made over the last 5 years, 10 years, even longer. And I don't see any reason for that to change, right?
Come on, almost hit.
We've seen him build all of the different and build up all the different pieces that he needs to sell these AI factories, these AI data centers. He's moving into other end markets. I think you mentioned PCs.
400 on this
we
one.
didn't see another specific
Starting
AI
to
company.
cut
We
again.
didn't see. They've got this.
But I'm getting 50K. I can't pass a 150K. It's too hard for me.
That they're selling, so it's sort of a PC form factor. They're moving into there. They're pushing much harder.
Let's go.
And now with this again, with this fusion,
Yeah.
they're extending the
Gotta wait.
ecosystem.
Order cancel.
Cancel this one out.
What they're just doing on their own. He's
short
not
anymore.
motivated by short-term decisions. Like, this is a company that has both the leadership as well as the resources to continue pushing the envelope and kind of moving the goalpost and making it very difficult for competitors to catch them. I don't see that.
I do think it's interesting, Stacey, speaking of competitors, that with the announcement about the NVLink fusion, of course, that other companies could sort of link into this infrastructure. I mean, what are the opportunities that Jensen has just opened for potentially competitors here too?
Well, yes and no. Look, I figure if like, for example, hyperscalers are going to do ASICs, they're going to do ASICs anyways. Like, you might as well have some of that rather than none. And I think to the extent that you're going to be extending pieces of your ecosystem into that space, I think that's good. Again, if you go back to what I said earlier, like if you look at the ASIC partners they've announced, it was players like Marvell and MediaTek. So it's more the silicon taker guys that are looking to take share. So if he's an ASIC that take share and get a piece of that, I think that's fine.
One more to go.
I think it's also interesting, you talked about Qualcomm. So Qualcomm made the announcement with Saudi Arabia last week that they're going to be building AI data centers.
Tradify is green now.
As of last week, it was a little unclear.
Just had to wait. That's all they do.
Ecosystems they're building, but now it's a little clearer, right? I mean, you can kind of see how they'll fit in with the NVIDIA GPUs that those guys will presumably be building for those data centers as well. So to the extent that Qualcomm was not playing, there will be opportunities now for other CPU vendors like them to start to benefit from these build-outs as well.
Stacey, thank you as always.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime.
Still to come this morning, JP Morgan hosting its Investor Day here in New York today, already making some headlines as we await Jamie Dimon's speech later this morning. We'll get the latest next. Plus, the House Budget Committee votes to advance the president's multi-trillion-dollar domestic policy package, but the path forward is not so clear. We'll get more details from Washington after a short break.
Yeah, pump up again when it's short.
Drinking too
We
much?
hit 440.
Take back control with More Health. More Health provides access to medication proven to help. A daily pill to drink less, or to quit drinking altogether. Text CNBC to 710-710 to learn more.
Public Rec, we're on a mission to make comfort look good. We develop premium performance fabrics that are built to last. Easy to care for, and hard to live without. Our Daymaker pads, with their various sizing options, are designed to fit your life's moments. No matter what comes your way, or how you spend your day.
More comfortable than jeans, more stylish than sweats. Public Rec, where comfort rules.
Is this your dream of retirement? How about this sweet deal? I like fishing. Or is this a little more your style? Retiring wealth isn't a guarantee, it's a goal. It's easy when markets are going up. But what about when they're not? That's why you need this.
Call for Fisher's Retirement Survival Kit, featuring your guide to surviving market volatility, our stock market outlook, plus the Fisher Investments Difference. 3 indispensable guides, yours free for calling 1-800-213-5317.
Fisher Investments' disciplined approach will help see you through the market's ups and downs and give you the confidence you need to reach a comfortable retirement. And our fees are structured so we do better and our clients do better.
Call now for your free retirement survival kit. 1-800-213-5317.
See if your dream retirement is on track.
If your portfolio is $1 million or more, call Fisher today. Call 1-800-213-5317.
Did you know that 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about?
Well, that's dumb. I keep track of my subscriptions in spreadsheets and I always get it ready.
We'll see about that. All right, so I just downloaded Rocket Money on your phone, and it looks like you're paying for 2 meal delivery kits.
What?
Why?
Let me see. It's probably my ex gotta call and cancel.
Oh, wait, with Rocket Money, you can cancel subscriptions you don't want right from the app with just a few taps.
Well, I still lost $400.
But you might not have, because Rocket Money will also reach out and try to get you a refund for the money you lost.
Actually?
Yeah, download Rocket Money today.
My hair has gotten so much thicker ever since taking it.
To have a probiotic green juice, I replaced it all with this Arma colostrum.
Gotta take it.
First thing I noticed was the energy and recovery that it had after workout. I wanted to try it. Try arma.com.
CNBC. Live ambitiously. Today, investor Dan Niles, his take on the recent rally. Time to buy in, market outlook, and top picks for investors right now. John Ford, Morgan Brennan, closing bell overtime, 4 Eastern, and streaming on CNBC+.
JP Morgan hosting its Investor Day here in New York City today, where Jamie Dimon is scheduled to speak this morning. Our Leslie Picker's live on the scene with the latest. Morning, Leslie.
Hey, good morning, Carl. Diamond planning to give closing remarks in about 50 minutes time and answer questions from investors and analysts here. He's likely to comment on the macro environment, including the Moody's recent decision to downgrade the U.S. credit rating and the broader fiscal picture in this country. We actually spoke 2 years ago on CNBC the day after Fitch made a similar move, and Diamond said at the time that it doesn't really matter. So we'll see if he still feels that way. Succession, of course, will be in focus, with BofA writing today that, quote, any signs that Mr. Dimon would stay in his current role as CEO for 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 more years, would be very bullish. So far this morning, we've heard from several contenders of that seat, including Marianne Lake, who runs consumer and community banking. She said the hard data around consumers, things like spending growth and cash buffers, indicate resilience, while noting sentiment among that cohort and small businesses has deteriorated. 2 other potential CEO candidates, Doug Petno and Troy Rohrbaugh, just started presenting on the state of the commercial and investment bank. So we'll bring you those headlines as we get them. In his opening remarks, CFO Jeremy Barnum reaffirming guidance on net interest income, the profitability metric for loan making, as well as the guidance on expenses, although he noted that the outlook for NII is slightly better than it was just a month ago during earnings. They're not quite ready to boost those expectations yet, though, David.
Leslie, just as a point of reference, Diamond is expected to stay in for how much longer?
Last year at this investor day, he kind of made some news when he said that the timeline is no longer 5 years anymore. That had been kind of his joke every time he was asked about it. Oh, another 5 years, another 5 years. And then last year he said it's no longer 5 years, indicating it was less than 5 years. So we don't know if it's 1 more year, 4 more years, four more years, and a little bit longer. So people will be looking for any indication of, that timeline today, of course. And then earlier this year, they did a reshuffling of the business heads to, indicate a couple of people who were candidates for that seat. And then recently, Jen Keepsack moved or decided to move to the operations role, kind of taking herself out of the running for that CEO spot. She was longly considered, for a long time, considered a favorite for that seat.
Small.
Order filled.
Order filled.
I'm
Order
bored.
submitted.
Leslie Picker, of course, we'll get more when we hear from Diamond. Time now for a news update, and we have Contessa Brewer bringing that to us. Contessa.
Hello, David. President Trump now is promising he will push his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to stop the bloodbath, Trump's words, in Ukraine. Trump said he's scheduled to speak with Putin at 10, did not clarify the time zone, though, so we don't know if that call is happening as we speak. Trump also said he would talk today with Ukraine's president and members of NATO. Israel announced it will allow some aid to enter the Gaza Strip after a nearly 3-month blockade, but Trump's carrying the supplies appear to be held right now in Egypt. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the turnabout is because of pressure from allies who said they would not support Israel's renewed offensive without this aid. Netanyahu also indicated Israel is seeking to seize control of the entire Gaza Strip. 23andMe has a buyer. Biotechnology firm Regeneron announced today it will acquire the genetic testing company for $256 million. In March, 23andMe announced it was planning to sell all of its assets, and there are concerns about what new ownership could mean for customers' stored genetic data. Regeneron says it will comply with existing privacy policies. We'll be sure to watch how this plays out. Court?
Thank you very much.
Order canceled.
Republicans pushing President Trump's top priorities forward in a
Order
late night vote. But the bill faces a murky path forward. We'll head to Washington for the latest. That's next. And Coinbase officially joining the S&P 500 today, but it comes as the company faces 2 new headwinds. We'll talk about what it all means for shareholders. We're back in 3.
Off season, I'm a male and muscle. Now I have relaxed fit hands-free Skechers slippers. No bending down, no touching. I kind of love not using my hands.
Come on, Eddie.
I'm out the game. Try relaxed fit Skechers slippers.
Your shipping manager left to find themselves, leaving you lost. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Sponsored jobs on Indeed are 2.5 times faster to first hire. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
At this point in my life, I know I'm investing for the long haul. Being able to use public and have the features like recurring investments, it's steady, reliable, and easy to manage. It's like having my money just on autopilot.
Book shows you how our simple option strategies offer you a lower cost way to trade stocks with limited downside risk and remarkable upside rewards. Get your free copy today at itsnotanoption.com. That's itsnotanoption.com.
Oh, dish soap is on sale. We need it?
Yeah. Oh, I think we need ketchup too.
What's in there?
Here. The ketchup's not in the fridge.
Ketchup does not go in the fridge.
Like when you were a kid coming up, you did this in your mother's house.
Right.
She failed you. I love your mother, but she ain't raised you right.
You try telling her that.
No, I will.
What?
Good while or bad while?
Nearly home. Just need more space. I feel like I'm suffocating. Oh no.
Order filled. Order submitted.
I'm in line. Okay, let's simmer down there. Y'all need real.
Order filled.
Order filled.
The pros trust most. With over
Order
500,000
submitted.
new listings every month, you could find the one today. This could be it. Better put a key ring on it.
You can say that again.
You better put a key ring on it. Make it real with Realtor.com.
Rusty pounding a rhythm to the brain.
Sometimes the greatest rush is not rushing at all. The all-new 2025 Nissan Murano, your oasis, free from new tariffs.
As a member of the Federal Credit Union, Nick feels financially at ease, which means he can worry about other things, like crossing this river. What if his feet get wet? Did he bring extra socks? Are there salmon in the river? Are salmon aggressive? Nick has a lot of things to worry about. But as a member of Navy Federal, his finances aren't one of them. Become a member today. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission.
Order canceled.
Welcome back. It was a weekend of infighting
Order
and late night
canceled.
meetings that surround President Trump's sweeping tax bill or cut of taxes.
Order
And the path
canceled.
forward, still remains unclear. Emily Wilkins has the latest for us, and of course,
Order
what's going to be
submitted.
for
negotiations are still ongoing, but the nearly $4 trillion tax package and the rest of Trump's extensive legislative agenda, it did clear another hurdle late Sunday night after a weekend of negotiations between GOP leadership and the fiscal hawks. But the bill still does not have the needed votes to pass in the House, meaning that Speaker Mike Johnson has more deals to make before the end of the week, which is his deadline for passing that bill. Now, Johnson and other Republican leaders, they talked with a lot of time this weekend with 4 members of the House Budget Committee who voted against this mega package on Friday. One of the members, Congressman John McCain, said on X that the group made progress regarding wind and solar repeals, welfare work requirements for the able bodies to ensure that meaningful reform takes place during President Trump's term in office, not after, as was previously drafted in the bill. Yet, despite that progress, it was not enough to get McCain and others to yes. They voted present last night, indicating that while progress had been made, they think there is more to go on these cuts. Of course, if lawmakers go too far on the cuts, then they risk alienating more moderate members who want to keep benefits like Medicaid and SNAP for their constituents. Plus, it's not just the issue on the budget. Lawmakers also have to figure out where to put that cap for state and local tax deductions. At this point, you have at least 5 lawmakers say that they will oppose the bill unless that proposed $30,000 cap is raised. Now, changes will be made at a committee meeting happening at 1 a.m. on Wednesday, middle of the night, trying to make sure they have time to get this done. Johnson hopes to have the House vote on Thursday. Remember, he can only afford to lose 3 votes on the floor. A lot of negotiations this week. There's a call coming up with Republican lawmakers to discuss the dynamics of the bill. We expect a lot more conversations happening on Capitol Hill as they rush to try to make the deadline of getting it passed this week. Guys?
You know it's getting intense when you start scheduling 1 a.m. meetings. Emily, appreciate that. Emily Wilkins, very busy week ahead. Still to come, Coinbase officially joining the S&P 500 today. Brian Armstrong talked about the news on our show last Wednesday.
We're very happy to be included in the S&P 500. It now means that crypto is here to stay. It's going to be a part of everybody's 401k.
After the break, what the stock's inclusion means for shareholders as the company faces a couple new important headwinds when we're back in a minute.
Trend Tracker is sponsored by CME Group.
Order filled. Order canceled.
CME Group, where risk meets opportunity.
Some people like doing things the hard way, like doing their finances with a spreadsheet instead of using Quicken. Quicken pulls all your financial info together in one place and updates it automatically. How easy is that? Most people don't realize how processed typical dog food is. At the Farmer's Dog, we believe dogs should be
Order
canceled without the excess processing.
Hey, all my shorts hitting.
Digestibility is just better. We have the right amount of protein, the right amount of fat.
Order canceled.
Being added, it's real food.
Everybody wants to take care of their dog in the best way they can. Our mission is just to help them do that.
Life insurance is a wonderful asset, but what happens
I'll come
when we no
back
longer
in.
need it?
I had it
We can't
4:30.
afford it
Took
anymore.
profit while I was
Meet
gone.
Tom and Susan. They chose to sell their policy for $200,000 cash. Now they're sailing through retirement. If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you may be able to sell it for cash. Get an instant estimate at ovidlife.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Or call 1-800-502-0100. That's 1-800-502-0100.
At Public Rec, we develop premium performance fabrics that are built to last and hard to live without. Our Daymaker hats, with their various sizing options, are designed to fit your life's moment. More comfortable than jeans, more stylish than sweats.
This is Cool, the fastest growing pet odor eliminator in the world. It's safe for people, pets, and the planet. Powerful enough to use on the very worst organic odor.
Give it time, I'll drop
It's
down
safe
later.
enough to use on pet toys. They're even choice is yours. Harsh chemicals and fragrances or the power of poof. There's only
Those shoes are ugly.
and at these stores. If it's not poof,
Yeah.
it stinks.
When my hair started thinning, I didn't want to hear the wisecracks.
I was ignoring my hair because I was a full-time working mother, but luckily I found Nutrafol.
My hair was getting
Those shoes are not cute.
And I finally feel like myself again.
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome to CNBC Plus. Where to?
There's a Bugatti logo.
New York for the Open.
On our way.
On-the-go access to global market data, news, and analysis as it happens. Access any market
Yeah, that right?
anywhere with CNBC Plus. Start
Exactly
streaming at
like that.
CNBC.com/plus.
Well, Coinbase officially the first crypto company to join the S&P 500 after a week of headlines
Is it 10
surrounding
yet?
the
No,
platform.
it's almost
Last
11.
week, Coinbase reporting hackers bribed staff to steal customer data. The company also confirmed a report that the SEC was investigating whether the exchange misstated its user number. So joining us now is benchmark analyst Mark Palmer. He's got a buy rating of $301 price target on the name. I guess before we sort of go through the flies in the ointment, I just want to get your take on the inclusion of this name in the S&P 500. It's going to get some passive flows just as a result of being part of the index. That has to be supportive of the share price, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, right now there are more than $7 trillion in various S&P 500 index funds. So you're going to have a lot of investors who are going to be indirectly owning crypto, whether they know they are or not. What's remarkable about this is that just a few months ago, the company was locked in an intense legal battle with the SEC, which was charging that its platform was illegal because it was trafficking in unregistered securities. Flash forward, obviously a change in administration, a change at the SEC, and now we have Coinbase being added to the S&P 500. It's really a landmark day not only for Coinbase, but for crypto in general.
Yeah, so I mean, in your estimation, is that SEC inquiry and then obviously this data hack, I mean, is that risky for investors, maybe especially those that aren't necessarily intending to invest in crypto?
Well, as it pertains to the news about the SEC investigation, frankly, that had to do with a metric that Coinbase had used back when it went public in 2021, verified users. The company has not used that metric for 2.5
This one should be
years.
good. It'll go back. I think it'll go under
Is
400.
a holdover investigation from the prior administration. We think it's highly likely that it will be dropped. The same way that the other investigation against SEC was against Coinbase was dropped by the SEC.
Look at that drop.
Back in February. So
Good shit.
we see that as a non-issue. As it pertains to the breach, any time that you see a breach of an exchange, that's
Nah, you good.
seriously.
You playing it safe.
What we're talking about
Yeah.
here, though, appears to be more.
I have a short again if we hit 430
this was not
again.
a breach of the company's firewalls. There were no customer information as it pertained to private keys, passwords, things of that nature that were taken. And so, it really comes down to a few compromised customer service contractors overseas. What's really important is that the company took quick and transparent action, let the market and investors know exactly what had happened, and created a remediation plan, which included moving those customer service support roles to the U.S. And promising to address any impact from this financially, which the company said could cost upwards of $400 million. But as far as Coinbase's response goes, it really was textbook out of crisis management 101.
Mark, the other interesting thing that kind of got unnoticed in the last couple of weeks because of all this other news were the comments from Armstrong about how in the past they considered a more aggressive.
Dang, look at that drop, dude. You should have hold longer.
And decided against it. I wonder what that tells you about the company's overall risk tolerance.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I should have held
I
to.
recall,
Yeah.
I've been covering this stock since 2021. And in those early days, the way that management would characterize the note
3
here
minutes looks like
having
it's
a
gonna
Bitcoin
drop
acquisition
more.
strategy would be a Texas hedge, meaning that the company already had exposure to the risks associated with crypto and its day-to-day operations of its exchange. So
Yeah.
actually holding Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies,
Your short was good.
would more or
It was
less
really
be,
good.
double exposure to the asset.
We totally had that short.
But given the success that strategy, the former MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor have had in executing their Bitcoin acquisition strategy, and given the expectation that the price of Bitcoin will continue to rise,
Only
it
go under
simply makes sense
350.
for Coinbase to approach that issue differently, to get involved with a Bitcoin acquisition strategy on behalf of its shareholders.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It is definitely a definitive day for crypto with this inclusion. I look forward to see what happens, and we'll stay in touch.
You see if the bot's gonna short anytime soon. Nope.
Still to go this morning, tariff concerns hitting shares of the automakers, as you know, but not stopping Toyota from launching a new
Look
iteration
at that pump
of its
again.
bestseller. That would be the RAV4. Why now and where they're making it in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, you know what, KJ? I'm gonna ask them real quick. I'm gonna be a man. I'm gonna beg him for it.
I'm thinking company-wide power. Anything can change the world of work. From HR to payroll, ADP designs for the next anything.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I was skeptical, so I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or
You
more
reach short
life
again?
insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let
I'll
your
put in
policy lapse
430 to
without finding
short.
out what it's worth. Visit
Order submitted.
CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies, or call 1-800-514-7800. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
Yeah.
Interview with billionaire media mogul Barry Diller on the ever-changing media landscape, Washington's impact on business, and his memoir, Who Knew?
Yes, we got it. Fuck yeah. He said yes. Yeah.
Don't worry. DashPass saves you money on DoorDash. You can skip the trip to the grocery store and stay right where you need to be. Popcorn? I'm good. Want to go get dinner?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll order. When you save big on orders, you can afford to give yourself a pass.
What do we think?
DashPass by DoorDash. Your door to more savings.
Toyota is launching a new version of its bestseller, the RAV4, but there are some headwinds when it comes to tariffs, and of course that involves where they make them. Phil LeBeau's here. He's got the story ahead of a deep dive with the company's COO that'll take place later this afternoon. Phil.
David, a big week for Toyota here in the U.S. because we're at the headquarters in Plano, Texas, where they're unveiling a slew of new vehicles that will go into production and on sale later this year, early next year, including the new RAV4. When you look at Toyota's footprint in the United States, yes, sales were up 3.4% last year, and its market share is now up to almost 15%, number 2 in the United States. But the RAV4, that's really the driver of sales right now. They are unveiling the new RAV4 over the next couple of days here in Plano, Texas. Last year, listen to this, RAV4 sales, 475,000, just over 475,000.
Wow, damn it. You just woke up?
Best-selling vehicle in the United States. The problem
Damn, what, you stayed up all night?
necessarily a problem, but a question that they're going to have to resolve is, where do you
Trading
manufacture
or?
this vehicle?
Oh,
Because
no,
when you
you
look
did
at it
that.
right now, it's built in 3 countries, the U.S., Canada, and Japan. But here you can see the issue. The bulk of the production is in Canada, and yes, they'll be able to offset some of the tariffs for vehicles built outside of the country with those coming from Canada. They can't offset the full 25% for the models that are imported from Japan, and there you see just 15% are built here in the United States. There's
What do you mean, like 9 active? Oh, you pay for 9?
Are imported models. So as you take a look at shares of Toyota, generally, like most in the auto industry, treading water, especially since the beginning of the Trump administration.
Check your money. Make sure they didn't charge you for 9.
Who is the COO, Chief Operating Officer of
No, I
Toyota
don't say
North
anything.
America. We will be talking with him this afternoon on the closing bell.
No, you should.
And this
Trade and
question
pass
of
them.
production.
Why
How much
not?
can you ship to the United States? How much do you have to say, look, it's a red-hot vehicle in demand. We're going to keep building it where we are in Canada and importing
No,
from
they won't
Japan.
charge you because
We'll cover that all
you
this
pay for it. I
afternoon.
mean,
Talk with Mark Temple. Guys, back to you.
you don't have to pay for. Yeah. I know. But listen, that if you do pass, right, and they charge you activation fee, just pay it because you did pass. But if you don't pass, it's just okay, free eval. You know what I mean?
Toyota, like many of the other automakers from Asia,
The only thing I can think of is like somebody won the giveaway and they gave the email to the partners, whoever the workers are, and they actually put your email in instead of someone else, and you took someone's giveaway. That's the only thing I can think
to a
of.
new site in the United States.
Important interview.
No.
An important moment for
Oh yeah,
automakers,
but
for sure.
don't say
Thanks.
anything.
Thanks,
Just
Phil,
use it up.
When we come back, gas
Yeah,
coming off the
don't
worst
say
week
shit.
since January as demand concerns and some cooler temperatures weigh on prices. CEO of natural gas company Williams is going to join us with his read from the ground when Money Movers begins in just a few minutes.
Franklin Templeton Custom Tax Management. Easily create custom estimates with our Canvas
Oh
file.
man, hey, who
And help
cares, man?
investors keep more of what they earn.
No, it's not weird. I mean, they have. Remember, they're training a lot of new staff, so they do mess up. You know, some people are getting charged like extra charges, and they're not getting it in accounts. So you got lucky.
It's a relief, to be honest. Check your price today at ethos.com.
Yeah.
Introducing AG1 Next Gen.
You have the link on YouTube.
The daily health drink backed by 4 rigorously designed clinical trials. Next Gen is clinically shown to increase healthy gut bacteria by over 10 times and to close common nutrient gaps. It's one drink for whole body health. The next generation of AG1 is here.
Oh shit, we gotta do the giveaway.
Every 15 seconds, someone will hear the words, "You have cancer."
I gotta start the
At the American Cancer Society,
giveaway real
we're
quick.
here to help people through their entire journey. Today, we're asking for your support. Your gift helps fund important research that saves lives.
Oh, and also the American Cancer Society.
We can't do this without you. Go to give.cancer.org.
Alright, let me hit start on this. How do you start this giveaway?
It is amazing to have collagen. I used to have a probiotic.
Okay, looks like it started. Okay, the bot's working.
With this arm of colostrum. And if you don't know what colostrum is, it is amazing. This is bioactive whole food. It has all the essential nutrients you need for your skin, your gut, energy, focus, mood, performance, your hair, like immune system. It strengthens, supports all of that. The first thing I noticed was the energy and recovery that it had after workout. If you want to try it, try armor.com.
We're Mizzou Health. Sound familiar? Financing the aluminum giant, building better homes? Mizzou Health is there. The merger of 2 logistics titans? Also us. Anywhere an industrials company needs a corporate and investment bank, we're there. Mizuho Americas.
Selling a car is a big deal.
See, now I can't cheat on the giveaway because
Okay,
the
and some
bot's
wrong
doing all the
turns.
work.
But when you're ready to sell, Car Gurus is big. Multiple offers instantly, so you choose the best deal. Car Gurus, the #1 most visited car shopping site. Don't miss a members-only event.
You want to trade? We may not be for you. You want to
I can't
invest?
just die.
Come to the right place.
Join the CNBC Investing Club to access Jim's monthly meeting. Go to cnbc.com/monthly meeting.
Yeah, I didn't think we were gonna pump.
Good Monday
Good
morning.
thing I didn't touch the funding. I was playing evals. But I would have get crushed if I played a funding. It's kind of short.
As investors digest that news.
Eat the tariffs. The president and Treasury Secretary blasting Walmart over possible trade-fueled price hikes. And JP Morgan Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon to address investors this hour. The bank's succession plan, DC policy uncertainty, and the state of the economy among the topics front and center.
As for the markets this morning, we did get off on the wrong foot because of that downgrade at the open, but trying to rebuild some steam, cutting our losses dramatically down, now down 70. Although breadth is pretty negative, still 3-1 negative here at the NYSE, and the VIX is above 18. Let's start on the economy following that downgrade of U.S. credit. Our Steve Leisman joins us this morning after talking to Bostic earlier this morning. What a great interview, Steve. You got a lot of stuff.
Thank you very much, Carl. Well, Fed officials here in Atlanta are taking a wait-and-see approach to this downgrade of U.S. debt by Moody's, putting it into the hopper among a pretty long list of issues playing out in the economy that require time for the Fed to figure out.
That downgrade, it will have implications for the cost of capital and a bunch of other things. And so it could have a ripple through the economy. Today, things are very much in flux. There's a lot of uncertainty. And what it means for me is, before I want our policy to move in any dramatic direction, we've got to let things sort out a bit. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Fed Vice Chair Phil Jefferson, also at the Financial Markets Conference here in Atlanta, saying the downgrade will be treated the same as other incoming data with focus on implications for jobs and inflation. That long list, of course, includes tariffs, changes to fiscal policy, immigration, deregulation. All of which can have profound economic effects as they work themselves through the economy. Could hit the Fed's dual mandate, actually in different ways. Several Wall Street economists, though, downplaying the immediate impact of the downgrade, said it is emblematic, however, of a deeper problem. Goldman, for example, saying, quote, while we do not believe the downgrade would force any holders of Treasury securities to sell, it highlights the deteriorating fiscal outlook. It comes at a time when markets are already attuned to fiscal risk. Well, Bostic, meanwhile, emphasized the inflation risk from tariffs is more important reason for the Fed to wait and see about what to do with rates in the coming months. He said he looks for a single cut this year, but that's highly contingent on when, where, and by how much those tariffs show up in the actual economic data, guys.
Steve, did it surprise you when he said that it didn't feel to him like April was
I
a
guess the NQ
significant
won't go
financial
down.
event?
Okay, so this is the place, Carl, where all the people who will tell you if there's a significant financial event, they're here. Okay, and I talked to them during that significant financial event, and I've been talking to them in the hallways, and there's pretty uniform agreement that we were close,
No
but not
way.
quite there when it came to a kind of financial meltdown that would have
Y'all
been
remember
equal
Ty
to, say,
Lopez?
the pandemic or the great financial crisis. Why that is a
Tried
matter
to
of
email
debate that
me.
we're having, but there were things that were going on that were
Ty
really
Lopez,
close.
that scammer.
That apparently
The guy with the I'm in my garage with my Lamborghini or whatever.
Mr. President, it's time to back off here, and he did it just in time. Several people have said to me that
Never heard of him?
for a couple days longer, we would have been in a much worse
Yeah,
situation.
this
I
guy
remember
it's on Discord.
person who was,
Look
you
him
know,
up.
in
He was
the bowels of the
big, but
financial
he's
system.
a big ass
Called him
scammer.
up and he said, Steve, we're not the story yet. And that's
No.
what was emblematic
Just
of what was going on at the
I forgot
time.
what does I don't know what he said.
And they weren't the only ones.
It wasn't
being
trading. It was
increasingly
like
local that month. I'm talking
marketing.
to someone else right now who was also had things to say on there. Steve, appreciate it. Steve Leisman, down in the important Atlanta Fed Conference. Joining us this morning, Oppenheimer
You
Asset
trading?
Management Chief Investment Strategist John Stolfus is with us, and PGIM Fixed Income Chief U.S.
Are you
Economist
trading right now?
Tom Porcelli. Happy Monday, guys. Thanks for being with us. Yeah. Tom, your thoughts about the news Friday night and how the bond market at least is absorbing it today?
I don't think it's anything
You
big
can make the
on
argument that they
Trump's
were
side.
14 years too late. I don't think that any
anything new was presented to us. In fact, if anything, I give them credit, excuse me, because I do think they just shined a really bright light on a lot of the fiscal issues that we're dealing with. Again, that's not new, but I think that we still have an enormous amount of worry that the fiscal situation will just continue to deteriorate in the United States. I mean, that to us is actually our base case at this point.
Until we never know when the tipping is, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And then look, I think the market's reaction is, I think it's really interesting, right? Like whether you're looking at equities or bonds, it's really starting to unwind some of the sort of the worst case scenarios that I think people were sort of wondering about on Friday. But look, I think the reality is seems to be the sort of, again, our base case. I mean, I don't like the idea of higher for longer because I actually just think it's really more normal for longer. But I think that what's happening here really sort of fits with that narrative.
And John, what about you? I mean, I think Tom Lee, when he was on earlier, he also did not think it was that big of a deal necessarily that Moody's downgraded debt, saying, look, they don't know anything that we don't or didn't already know. However, it did seem like stocks reacted at the first opportunity this morning, at least initially.
Well, I've got to say, when you get that reaction in the market, you have to recognize that there's really two core elements within the market that play on these changes. One are the traders, and the other is the private investors, intermediate to long-term institutional investors as well. The short-term investors, they're looking for a catalyst to take some profits after a really sizable run-up from the April 8th lows that we've seen in the S&P 500. If you look at the change, I mean, you've got some sectors are up. Tech is up 30% from those lows. Industrials are up 23%, and consumer discretionary up 22.83%. To see growth in cyclical sectors take a little bit of haircut on this news, nothing out of order. And also, when you consider we've already had three of these downgrades, one 2011, 2023, and most recently on Friday. The reality is the U.S. is the largest economy in the world. It has operated with extreme largesse to many constituencies on both sides of the aisle, plus allies, trading partners for years. This is beginning to be addressed instead of the can being kicked down the road. And that is more a creator of near-term volatility, we think, than the end of the road for the U.S.
Although it's being addressed, but not in ways that lower the deficit, at least in this current legislation.
100% agree. I mean, look, we have $7 trillion in outlays. $4 trillion of that is mandatory spending. So unless you're going to go after mandatory spending, you're going to have a really hard time really getting a handle on total outlays in the United States. And I think, as we know, there's just no appetite for that in D.C. I don't think it matters, what side of the political aisle you're talking about. So, yes, I think, it's very easy. I mean, it's not heroic at all to say that deficits, for as far as I can see, persist.
Right. As for the behavior of long-term yields lately, not because the
I'm talking about the giveaway.
Has that awakened the vulnerabilities of the regional banks the way we saw in 23?
No, I mean, look, and again, I would defer to banking analysts on that. But what I would say is, I think banks are actually in a better sort of shape today than they were back.
Oh yeah, Lucid, they have a meeting with Tradeovate, so they might get it soon, and then Project X, but I don't see how you pronounce that prop firm.
I think at the end of the day, the way that I would actually back into that idea, whether it's good or bad, is the extent to which banks open up their lending standards, right? I mean, are they willing to make more loans? Are they willing to actually engage in more credit expansion? And then that, I think, sort of lends itself to a whole assortment of other conversations, because I think what you consider the consumer today.
Phidias, okay, so that one, they might get Project X soon.
For us, I mean, I think that's how we would tackle it.
Which is interesting, John. I mean,
The one I'm doing a giveaway, Phidias.
From a balance sheet perspective, but then when you look at the soft data, the sentiment and the confidence,
So that's gonna be pretty cool.
not good, right? I think it's flashing some warning signs, but again, not yet showing up in the hard data. So how do we sort of square that together with what that ultimately means for the
I don't know, I'm
power
asking
of the
you.
consumer going forward here?
Well, I think that ultimately what we really need to consider
Google's a
is soft data is indeed soft
Phidias.
data. It relies on all kinds of surveys. Who is being surveyed? How do they
Phidias.
feel?
Phidias.
And also the consumer.
Phidias.
Business since 1983,
Phidias.
so I
Yeah.
came in with Paul Volcker was in his
I don't
second
know, I
term.
guess.
The consumer always projects negatively when they hear reports of
Phidias.
inflation. Yet so far,
Phidias.
they haven't stopped spending. They
Phidias.
have curtailed their spending or refined
I think French.
buying a discount, private
France,
label,
sorry.
buying used cars instead of new, things like that. But overall, jobs numbers are still good enough to imply that the consumer is likely to remain in good stead for a considerable period ahead. It's not falling apart. It doesn't feel like a recession at this point, but or it doesn't feel like we're
But
going
they might get Trade Ovate too. If they get Trade Ovate and Project X, it's gonna be crazy.
I forget my voice, by the way. But I think that, to me, what's critical, and I think part of this whole conversation, like the sort of the umbrella on this whole conversation, is how are companies going to deal with tariffs? And I know, that whole conversation around, Walmart should eat the tariffs and et cetera. Listen, they can do that, but I think there's one thing you need to keep in mind. The more that they do that, the greater the compression from a profit margin perspective, and then the greater the risk that labor actually starts to enter the equation on, okay, well, if we're taking it on the chin from a margin perspective, how are we going to manage that from a labor perspective? And usually labor winds up losing in that regard.
Right, or a CapEx perspective. That's,
absolutely. It's absolutely right.
Pretty interesting. So many threads at work right now. John and Tom, good to see you both. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, still ahead, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang making a number of announcements at Computex last night, including plans to build a supercomputer in Taiwan. We'll discuss what that means for the stock next.
We are awaiting Jamie Dimon's remarks at JP Morgan's Investor Day today. They've already reiterated their net interest income guidance for the year. Succession plans are also top of mind. We'll be listening for that as Money Movers continues on this Monday.
He did start trading. I think they just had an open order or ghost order. It happened to me last night. Yeah, on TradeAvate. I woke up, I had to go poop, right? And I saw my my account. I was like, oh shit, I'm up $400. It was shorting.
Any idea?
I didn't even know.
So their life insurance
just
policy for
took
cash.
profit.
So they're basically sitting on a gold mine. I don't think they have a clue. That's crazy. Well, not everyone knows.
Hey, if I didn't have to go.
thousands
Yeah, I know. If I didn't have to poop, I'd be losing money.
Order canceled.
Sitting on all this cash.
If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you can sell all or part of it to Coventry. Even
Order filled.
That's not true. They say you dream about poop and you need to get up and poop before you poop in your pants.
Order submitted.
They get poop from getting money.
I don't hear anything anymore.
I've never heard of that.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-571-7900 or visit coventrydirect.com.
Crazy bits.
New projects means new project managers. You need to
Order
hire.
canceled.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
Never
He'll kill you, Gambit.
Having a 10% global tariff, that's going to help reduce the trade deficit, but also reshore and create fair
Order
trade deals
submitted.
with our partners overseas.
Companies recalibrate but will not reshore. 10% is not enough for companies to reshore.
Retailers, they're going to look across all categories of products and look at the elasticity of the demand for those products.
Oh,
and maybe change
he's
prices on other products that might not have a
in the
tariff.
30s.
I know it's going to be hard, but I think it's time. You don't want to smoke. Starting to quit nicotine on your own can be... You don't want to smoke. I think I can do it. I can quit. Complicated.
And you won't die.
But with X Program, you can guess a little less and outsmart nicotine. Join a free program developed by experts that can increase your
I'm
odds
about
of
to hit
quitting.
my
Text X
target.
Program to
Let me
88709.
short one more time.
Pay my rent.
It might, I don't know.
Star 3. I am pure electric performance. From the straightaways,
I didn't think the market's gonna move like this after the
I am
downgrade.
designed to be driven. The drive of tomorrow. I am Polestar 3.
Really? The downgrade's priced in?
The switch to Polestar. Offer ends June 2nd.
Wow.
been a busy few days for the NVIDIA CEO, Jensen Huang, announcing AI partnerships from Saudi Arabia last week to Taiwan at Computex just a few hours ago. Take a listen.
Today, I'm very happy to announce that we're also building AI for Taiwan. And so today we're announcing that
Yeah, until
Foxconn,
the pause is
Taiwan,
gone, then we dump
the
again.
Taiwanese government, NVIDIA, TSMC, we're going to build the first giant AI supercomputer here for the AI infrastructure and the AI ecosystem of Taiwan.
Joining us now with his reaction, Morgan Stanley analyst Joseph Moore. NVIDIA is his top pick in semis with an overweight rating and price target of 160. Joseph, thanks for joining us. Any big surprises out of this announcement for you? Is it sort of this new integration option that they're announcing, or the supercomputer? What'd you like? How does it play into your overall thesis for NVIDIA?
Yeah, I think the bigger picture, I wouldn't call it a surprise, but this big focus on this so-called AI factory, right? We're seeing very strong demand for token growth. Jensen made the point that bigger hyperscalers are now talking about token numbers on their earnings calls, becoming a driving factor for their business, and they need a lot of hardware to manage that. Obviously, geopolitics plays a big factor here, and so having capacity in each region, you alluded to that, the announcement in Saudi Arabia last week, Taiwan this week, just a lot of focus on putting this capacity everywhere in the world, and just facing with
And he
a
hit
very strong
the
degree of
target
demand for
today and
AI
he logged out, but you know how it is with those platforms.
Maybe the biggest worries about DeepSeek and how that may
Oh, it
affect
sucks.
demand for these chips and all the company services that are
Oh no,
being
I thought I
offered.
closed out all my
NVIDIA,
limit
sort of in
orders,
the
but
past, was it just
it
a
hit
shock?
last night
But
for some
we're
reason.
through that. We realize the innovation is still largely here and important.
I think we've moved past it to some degree.
Yeah,
We
I don't know why he's not doing it. But he's
new innovations
he's
every week.
killing it with the other
We've had
ones.
everyone who spends money on hardware sort of articulating that it's important to keep doing so, to keep scaling these training clusters.
Yeah.
And to me, it's quite important that the demand surge that we're seeing now is more on the inference side. It's actually the usage of these models. It's not based on some venture-backed investment in big training clusters.
We got 12
it's actually
minutes
usage,
left.
it's the revenue-generating part of the business
No,
that's now driving hardware sales, and I think that's an important thing. DeepSeek
Are you
shows
long?
that
What are you long at?
competitive in this market. I think that will continue to be the case.
That's good long.
And I think that we've seen that people are going to make do with different amounts of hardware in different regions, but we've, importantly, really
I
see
just
the
need
value
$20 more
of
I can stop trading
hardware
on
everywhere in the world,
trade
and I think that will continue to be the
hit
case.
$200
So
a
I
day
think the
and
big
just stop.
moment where people were really concerned about it has passed. The trade tensions around China, things like that, have persisted, so we still have to deal with that. And NVIDIA's quarter, they will face some export controls in China, so that'll be a factor. But I think we've moved past the concern that this was going to be a shift in the overall AI spending environment.
Joe, remind me, where are we right now in the level of
Which
concern
one you
about
do?
their
Are you doing advanced? I got the
in
cheapest
the back
one,
half of
just
this
the
year
YOLO.
going into next year? That was sort of the locus of some concern a few months back, right?
Yeah, 100%. And they're
like
still
evals, huh?
working hard on these
Order
large-scale systems, right? And Jensen said in the
Order
keynote,
submitted.
You should have got
this is
the
what they expected. Bringing up
tick
these
tick
large-scale
50%
racks
off.
is something that took them longer than they thought. They had to work hard at it. It had some margin ramifications, I think. They also, have to write down some
Verifying
of
your
this China
account,
product.
the ID,
So I
right?
think we're probably still dealing with some potential for margin pressures, but it looks transitory to me. They, said we do plan on seeing gross margins getting back into the
I'm already
mid-70s.
short
A lot of
425. I
this was
just need
just
to
the
get out.
startup on moving from selling cards into selling entire racks and the challenges that come with that. And so I don't think we're necessarily completely out of the woods, but I don't think it's something we'll be talking about in 6 months. So I feel, quite good about the
Dude, I
stock,
don't have
particularly as we move into
884
the second
sub
half.
now.
About the NVLink fusion, I was just curious, and we asked someone previously about what it means potentially for competitors, more
Yeah, he got out.
collaborators. Does that open up sort of any stock interest in other names in your coverage area?
Well, I think we're going to have to see what it means. I think, they are actively supporting their competition potentially with this
Nobody
NVLink
knows.
technology. And so, you may see ASIC vendors can get better because
There's
of
like
what
Trump
they're
on
doing
TV
here.
every fucking day.
At the same
It's
time,
annoying.
it's a source of revenue for NVIDIA. I think it gives them probably some openness. Their customers are very large hyperscalers that, have a lot of market power. And I think probably hoping them to do what they'd want to do is probably a good thing. So I have a lot of faith in their ability to manage through it. But in terms of parsing out who wins and who loses, I think we probably need a little bit more time. But this is a vibrant ecosystem. I think there's room for a lot of companies to grow. And so, I don't necessarily think it's zero sum. And it is interesting. It's a little bit of an unexpected direction for them to take. But I think we need some time to assess how it's going to affect the ecosystems.
Joseph Moore, thank you very much.
Order canceled.
Oh, come on. $3 shy. Oh, I hate when that happens.
Jamie Dimon's remarks at JP Morgan's Investor Day today. We'll bring you some headlines as soon as he begins. They're already on the tape saying they do expect Q2 investment banking fees to be down mid-teens. We'll be listening for more.
And the CEO of natural gas company Williams joins us to discuss demand. That's coming up. We'll be right back.
Order filled.
What makes
Order
a Medicare
submitted.
supplement insurance plan like an AARP Medicare
Order
supplement
canceled.
insurance
Order
plan from United
submitted.
Healthcare? A
Or
good
order
insurance plan
canceled.
from Medicare.
$1 shy.
You have now.
Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted.
I'm 70-ish.
It's really smart.
Hey, looking good. You made a great
Order
choice.
canceled.
There you go. I can stop now.
With this type of plan, see any doctor or visit any hospital that accepts Medicare patients. There are no networks. Your healthcare future will have more freedom.
Kept her doctor. And when I needed a specialist, no referrals needed, right? Bingo.
In fact, see any doctor anywhere in the U.S. Really smart to have when you travel.
When I visit this little cutie in Arizona, my plan goes with me. Grandkids! I can't wait.
Don't worry about surprise medical bills either. You'll know up front about how much your care will cost. And knowing your expenses makes planning your financial future easier.
I'm glad my husband and I can use our savings to do the things we want to do. I'm glad I don't have to shop for a new plan every year.
That's right. Once you enroll, your coverage is guaranteed for as long as you keep this plan. Have questions?
Bye.
Call United Healthcare now to talk with a licensed insurance agent or producer. They know a lot about what makes these plans smart now and really smart later. Or just ask for this free guide. Benefits and rates in one place, so it's easy to compare options. Year to year, 94% of members renew their plan. And Medicare supplement plans with the AARP name are the only Medicare supplement plans endorsed by AARP, meeting their high standards of service and quality. So give United Healthcare a call today and set yourself and your future self up with an AARP Medicare supplement plan from United
Order
Healthcare.
submitted.
Winnie, look at you. Thanks again for looking out for me. Oh, we're in this together.
An AARP Medicare supplement plan from United Healthcare. Smart now, really smart later.
One of my favorite supplements is Cunol
Yep, you
turmeric.
didn't miss anything.
Turmeric helps with healthy joints and inflammation support.
I think
And
Jay-Z
Cunol
is
has the
scamming.
number one doctor recommended form of turmeric. Cunol,
Yeah.
the brand I trust.
At Public, the high yield cash account's a no-brainer. I know my money's worth
Yeah, with two
hard
different
for me,
accounts.
and I know I can
Fucking
access it anytime I
scammer.
need it. It's very simple. Better rates mean faster growth, and that's exactly what I need.
Yeah.
Introducing AG1 Next Gen. The daily health drink backed by 4 rigorously designed clinical trials. Next Gen is clinically shown to increase healthy gut bacteria by over 10 times and to close common nutrient gaps. It's one drink for whole body health. The next generation of AG1 is here.
Oh, but it's an email. I didn't know that. That's different email. Oh, wow.
Picks for investors right now. John Ford, Morgan Brennan, closing bell overtime, 4 Eastern, and streaming on CNBC Plus.
Yeah.
Experience the power of CNBC Pro. Never miss a moment with exclusive access to market-moving interviews and stock picks. Become a smarter investor with
That's
the
weird.
power of CNBC Pro. Go to cnbc.com/getpro now. Still awaiting Jamie Dimon's remarks at JP Morgan's Investor Day today. Our Leslie Picker's there fielding quite a bit
That
of
link
information
you,
here
you
last 2
post
minutes.
on YouTube,
LB.
like
Yeah.
70 people
Coming
just
out
watching
of
it.
this
That's not a
Investor Day,
lot.
which they of course do annually, currently in a coffee break. But right before the break, we did get some guidance from
okay.
the heads of the commercial and investment bank, which looked at 2Q investment banking fees, which they said are expected to be down in the mid-teens %
4 minutes
year over year.
left.
That
really does, of course, depend on how the remainder of the quarter plays out, which is essentially a month and a half, 2 months from here. Markets had a very good start to the quarter. And if
Are
you
you
remember,
done trading
Q1 was
for
just
the
an
day?
absolute blockbuster across Wall Street for
Make
market sales.
make
and
sure you
trading
have
and so
everything
forth.
exit out
But they
because
say that
Doc just had
volatility has
his
now
ghost order
moderated,
hit.
so they expect growth in the markets to be mid to high single digits
Yeah.
year over year, and that just kind of is reflective of some of the volatility moderation that we've seen in recent weeks. Of course, we are expecting CEO Jamie Dimon to provide closing
Is it near
remarks as
passing?
well as take Q&A momentarily. Historically, that's provided a lot of insight into his thoughts on everything from buybacks to succession planning to excess capital and what they plan to do there.
You
Last
got
year,
it.
there was a
600 is
huge
pretty good
discussion
tomorrow.
about private credit from analysts that just wanted to know kind of what JP Morgan was doing on that front.
Don't
We
trade
did also
tonight.
hear in some remarks today from the Commercial and Investment Bank about the $50 billion direct lending plans that they have off the balance sheet and how they plan to kind of play in that world. They say it's not an asset gathering venture there, that it's more just a reflection of what they're hearing from clients and the clients' needs as it pertains to
How's
their
the
capital.
Chronos? Are you trading that yet or
Leslie, on
waiting?
credit cards, in terms of health of the consumer and some of these charge-off expectations for next year, that they
Dude, you didn't last one day?
Actually, they said that loss rates for credit cards actually are more indicative of kind of a labor market deterioration. So sentiment concerns that we hear about and anything as it pertains to concerns about inflation or tariffs, so far that hasn't had a follow through on their expectations for loss rates. They say that really is dependent on the quality of the labor market and the health of the labor market, which has so far remained, pretty healthy. And so they haven't really changed their reserves to account for that. Right now, they're reserved for a 5.8% unemployment rate. So if that were to tick up, obviously beyond 5.8%, they would have to reserve more. But the kind of the materiality of it all will
They didn't have
depend on the overall
they didn't have
economic environment,
DLL,
what
right?
they're seeing beyond that 5.8%.
Ah, man, that sucks.
Les, thank you very much. Keep us updated. Everyone listens when Jamie Dimon. Time now for a news update. Contessa Brewer has that for us. Hi, Contessa.
Hi there, Courtney. Vice President J.D. Vance today extended an invitation to Pope Leo the 14th to come back to the United States for a visit. Vance gave the Pope a letter he said was from President Trump and the First Lady that offered that
Good thing it's free though, you know what I mean?
Yesterday, the Vice President and Secretary of State Marco Rubio attended the Pope's inaugural Mass. Vance also had met with Pope Francis just before he died. The Mexican Navy has identified the two cadets in their early 20s that were killed when a Mexican naval ship lost power and crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. Nearly 24 others were injured as New Yorkers watched the ship and its 160-foot mast just crumble when it hit the iconic bridge Saturday night.
They're still waiting. Well, you're still waiting on the futures account, right?
Investigation. What's remarkable too when you're watching that is how people stood and watched the ship just drifting toward them.
What's ETA on getting
the
the
manhunt for the
futures account?
inmates who escaped late last week from a New Orleans jail enters its
This week?
fourth day. 7 men are still on the run. Authorities said 10 inmates in total fled through a hole behind a toilet early Friday.
Dude,
3 staff members at the jail
it's weird. It's like
suspended without pay.
I think people getting approved on Apex now, but last week a lot of people was getting denied.
Story will stay on top of that one. Courtney, I'll send it back to you.
Wow.
Contessa, yeah, video of that ship hitting the Brooklyn Bridge was really eye-opening. I'm going to be interested to see what happened there, and I hope everyone stays safe down in the New Orleans area. Thank you. Well, still ahead, President Trump calling on Walmart to, quote, eat the tariffs. But can the retailer really afford to absorb the impact? We'll discuss after the break.
Crypto Watch is sponsored by Crypto.com.
Picky guy, yeah. That's what I heard too. It depends on the person. It sucks for the traders though.
Crypto.com is America's premier
Alright,
crypto
let me start this giveaway.
Opportunities don't stop when the market day ends. So neither do we. Schwab gives you round-the-clock access to over 800 of the most popular stocks and ETFs, plus a wide
I
variety of
gotta finish this here real quick.
all with 24-hour support from trading specialists. in understanding the ins and outs of 24-hour trading. No matter the hour, you can trade brilliantly with Schwab.
Life insurance is a wonderful asset, but what happens when you no longer need it, or you can't afford it any longer? Meet Tom and Susan. They chose to sell their policy for $200,000 cash. Now they're sailing through retirement. If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more,
Yeah, Ty
you may
Lopez,
be able
not,
to sell
not
it for
him.
cash. Get an instant estimate at ovidlife.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Or call 1-800-502-0100. That's 1-800-502-0100.
I won't let you out until you can prove you know your finances.
Okay, let's go.
How many subscriptions are you paying for? 3? Let's download Rocket Money and see if you're right. Oh, you're actually paying
No,
for
it's
15 subscriptions.
Phidias, but in any size you want. You can get the 100K, 200K. I'll pick the most expensive if I was a winner.
Subscriptions you forgot about. And if you see a subscription you no longer want, you can cancel
Yeah,
it.
activation thing is half off.
Yeah, let's get about
No way. What a. I think so.
ZipRecruiter has this feature called Zip Intro. I took the time and it did all the work of finding and scheduling the candidates for me. I just picked my top choices and talked to great people the very next day. The plan was to hire 2 people, but the candidate quality was so good, I wound up hiring 4 in a week.
Zip Intro. Post jobs today. Talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Try it free only at ZipRecruiter.com/CNBC.
Nothing stands still. Not technology.
I mean, if they don't reply back, I'm gonna pick someone else.
Always innovating. Today, we're a leader in public and private markets, digital assets,
Well,
and custom
that Thai guy hasn't replied back yet.
advisors with solutions to build a portfolio
Yeah.
of the future today.
Let me get this code to Pollen.
Your trusted partner.
Yeah, I need to do that. PTP, yeah. Project X and Tradeovate. Yeah.
Putting nicotine with support makes all the difference. Outsmart nicotine every step of the way with X program.
Believe me, when it comes to investing, you'll love Carl's Way. Take a left here, please.
But there's a
Carl's Way is the best way.
Is it? At Schwab, how I choose to invest is up to me.
Exactly. I can invest and trade on my
Cool.
Yes, and I let them manage some investments for me too.
Let's move on, shall we? No can do.
Look it up here.
Where are you going?
Schwab.
Thank you.
Schwab, a modern approach to wealth
That one.
management.
Welcome back. Markets continue to try to recover from the opening low this morning. Most sectors, though, still negative. Breath here, about 2 to 1 negative. VIX is still above 18.
Man, we're down to
VIX
380,
report
so
is
either
down
way
about
you'll get
5 yields come
stopped.
off of the 5 handle, now down to 495. Our senior markets commentator, Mike Santoli, has been watching some of this early
Oh, you did?
reformation since the open.
Yeah, and the bond market was always going to be the arbiter of whether, in fact, stocks could handle the debt downgrade news or whether it was going to be seen as some kind of inflection point or new information. It's largely a shrug, and I think the key is the Treasury yields more or less held last week's highs. It held the range, came in from there. But that aside, I think even absent the Moody's move, you would have or should have expected this week or soon for there to be a bit of a pause, maybe a little bit of a retrenchment in this rally. I think the broad framework
You see the
that makes
chat?
sense coming into this weekend, this rally has been
Look at the
far
chat.
stronger and more
Look what
convincing
Jay-Z
than we
wrote.
thought 6 weeks ago.
She got busted.
Through a lot of technical hurdles, the breadth and momentum off the low.
That's the wrong account that won, too.
Last week, all that stuff buys you a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, you really stretch up 23% in 6 weeks. Probably should expect some kind of a kind of churning period here. I would say anything down to the 200, even below it, 5,700 is perfectly routine, like 4%. And so you could say the low is in, but I don't know that that tells you very much right now because, look, going back to below 5,000, which was the closing low, is a really stiff move from here. It's a 15% plus decline. It'd be surprising and rare for this rally to be a total head fake. But what are you doing right now? You're pricing in almost certainly further de-escalation on trade. You're pricing in more of the good. You've priced out further recession risk last week.
No,
So
no,
I think
Callie.
you're in that mode now where it's a little more like you got to prove it. It's got to be a little more substantive.
What about what's going on in DC? As Emily Wilkins has been updating us about the president's bill, which obviously may include some tax cuts.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it has the goods to sort of cross where it is right now. They need to do some revamping. But how focused is the market going to be on that as an offset to tariffs, even if you think they're de-escalating?
Sure. No, I think the
that's-
Treasury market once again is going to be your beacon on that. And if
It's
it
the
sort
same
of feels
person.
as if that this is either fiscally irresponsible or unsustainable, whatever's
Yeah.
likely to pass.
Well, no, because I guess it's the same issue you had
register at higher
with the
Yeah, look, every
mobile
time we've had a
and
growth scare,
yeah.
you've settled with 10-year Treasury yields at a higher level, right? You had the growth scare late last year, it got you down below 4% briefly. This time, you had the tariffs, you had the pile on of this, oh no, we have certain recession coming, they're trying to engineer recession. We bottomed at like 4.3. So it shows you there's a little bit of a tough move to get that offset from bonds.
It's
I
weird
think you
it does
can
that.
take some heart in the fact that, and it's true what the administration is saying about oil prices being down. And then on top of that, credit conditions still being firm, where you can sort of say, okay, we're not really headed for something nasty right away in terms of the economy. Maybe it's just a window. Maybe it's just we got this several month period where you get a free pass on the incoming data. But a lot's going to
I
matter
gave it
in
all
terms of coming around
out.
July. When a lot
Tomorrow
of
do
this
some
stuff is going to
Bonox
see either get
giveaway,
into earnings estimates or doesn't
and
come.
whenever I get the
Interesting
Lucid
stuff. I mean, there's so
straight to
much
fun,
brewing
I'll put it
under
on
the surface here.
YouTube.
Really appreciate you bringing this to us today as we are off session lows here this morning. We'll share
What the hell?
under a bit of pressure this morning. The president blasting the retailer over the weekend for warning that it will have to raise prices because
Oh
of
no,
tariffs.
there's two different ones.
CFO John David Rainey told us last week.
We've not seen a period where you've had prices go up this high, this quickly. We're well equipped and experienced in dealing with elasticities or pricing.
No fucking way.
But not 30%. And so understanding by category, by item, what the demand is going to be is really important to making sure that you have the right amount of inventory in the right places at the right time.
So the president
Order
will get
filled.
ready to, quote, stop
So
trying
the other
to
one
avoid
was not
tariffs, and that
Jay-Z.
it could,
Wow.
quote, eat the tariffs. Tourism Secretary Scott Bessent addressed the issue yesterday on Meet the Press.
I was on the phone with Doug McMillan, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday, and Walmart is in fact going to, as you described it, eat some of the tariffs that just as they did in 18, 19, and 20. The other thing, though, that we are seeing that Doug passed along to me, that with their consumer, the single most important thing is the gasoline price, and gasoline prices have collapsed under President Trump. Let's see what happens. What you were describing was Walmart's earnings call. The other thing that companies have to do, they have to give the worst case scenario so that they're not sued.
Well, Mizuho senior analyst David Bellinger joins us now. David, I guess, you know, as someone that follows this company very closely and has been through the ups and downs of Walmart over the years with tariffs and everything else, I mean, I think
log off
we
the
know
YouTube.
if anyone can absorb some
Good luck,
of
guys.
these higher tariff levels, it's